Chapter 151, Great War Outbreak Start. Great War Outbreak Start. Well, I heard the detailed account from Gadraji-san and Shinji's group who came here before, and it was a certainty that the Empire had moved. It's as expected. First of all, a command post as the Strategic Union headquarters was set up inside the control room. Benimaru and Sui will always be on standby here. Sui let out many of his clones to various places. Our information gathering didn't rely only on image surveillance. To be frank, to be able to use something like high-altitude image surveillance in this world's war could be said as a out-of-the-box technique. No matter what I thought, I want to see it. Previously, I was troubled which route would be attacked, but it's just a funny story now. After all, to say nothing about dangerous route, even the situation inside the Empire can be observed, so everything was completely exposed from their first action. If this situation is compared to a shogi match, then my side can see everything across the board, while the enemy only makes a move without knowing the move that my side had made. It's that kind of feeling. Not only against an outstanding amateur, I will not get defeated by an expert enemy either. I am not playing a game with a disadvantage handicap, but rather had an advantage, absolute superiority, at my side. Oh well, it's not like war have rules or whatnot. Righteousness is with the winner. Anyway, there's no international laws in this world, then there's no problem, as there were no rule to be abided either. In the Council of Nations, more or less there is something resembling an international treaty. Normally the course of the event would be the head of the warring countries decided the rule during the war and after the war before starting the war. But, in the case of one-sided aggressor country, such rules didn't apply. And so in this case, anything goes in this kind of war. Frankly, the rule that I had decided was only one. Involving the civilian is prohibited. It's only this. Of course, a follow-up attack after I declared the war had ended, is absolutely prohibited. Oh well, I believe there's no one that will go against my will and didn't abide this order. Therefore, the Empire's forces which gathered one after another were projected on the several large screens. The first corps commanded by Gobuta and the third corps led by Gable were deployed as the vanguard force. Making use of their high-speed movement, this allows the corps to deal with the situation in any location immediately. Their numbers are few, but I judged it's not a problem if they devoted themselves on hit-and-run tactics. But hey, why is there a tank here? A mere soldier like Shinji and Co wouldn't know a lot about military secrets, so the tank's existence was not known to them. As far as I observed them from the sky, there were 4.000 tanks. Moreover, it seemed to use magic essence as energy and it didn't seem to be necessary to replenishing its fuel. This tank had high versatility and it seemed to have performance that exceeded our former world's highest performance tank easily if I only compared by their performance. I don't know whether it moved only with magic essence, and there seems some kind of refueling, but judging from its speed, it was abnormal. I assumed bad roads would not be a problem for it even while running with 100 km per hour or more. I rise from the ground slightly just like floating in the air. Honestly, magic is incredible. So I thought, but more than that, I tasted the bitterness if only it also gets developed in here. Obviously it incorporated the knowledge of the other worlders. Even I could hit upon that idea, but such ideas like a tank wasn't suited in a world of sword and magic. If only my head got more brains, then I could freely order for an idea. No, let's stop. There's no use even if I regret it. It's an issue for later. When this war is over, let's try developing things in various ways more freely. We wasn't only surprised by the tank. An airship flew. Seriously. It was hard to hold back the screaming. If there is that, transportation will become remarkably easy. The supplies problem would be settled if it was used for war. Besides, I am optimistic that I can steal the air supremacy one-sidedly, but this might be a tad self-conceited. I was thinking of developing it, but it was practically impossible. I did various development, but it was realistically impossible to be implemented. I should really praise the fruits of the development team of that side, honestly. Because there will be no invention of such level that can be completed overnight. Well, nevertheless I want to capture one ship safely. After thinking for a bit, there is no other way. Well, I was surprised because of the Empire's military weapons, but even so my side wins in information warfare. Raphael roughly counted the total of the Empire's soldiers. There seemed to be approximately 1 million soldiers. An outrageous number has come out. I didn't know how far Yuuki had spread his influence, but it will be difficult for him to keep this number under control, right? I think this is probably because of the big effect from the bait I spread. If that's so, the enemy army may aim for the labyrinth. While I thought about the situation, a corps emerges and begins to detour towards a different direction from the direction that the tank corps is advancing to. Apparently, that corps seems going to invade the border around the Dwarf Kingdom outskirts. The tank pretends to be the main force, while the real main force was deployed on other place. Humph, honestly only such impression comes out. What should we do? Should Gobuta and his corps that went to the front line return? No, their number is not enough anyway. Let's entrust the main force that went to another direction to Gerudo. I mean, one portion of the enemy will enter the labyrinth. It will be easy to crush every one of them. I see. How's the labyrinth? Benimaru is unusually serious. His usual frank speech has fallen silent. He now bared his true nature as the Supreme General. He's really reliable. Ramaris, could you take in the entire adventurers' town around the labyrinth into the labyrinth? I could, you know. No problem at all. I see, then let's do it like that. Having said that, I explained the circumstances to Masayuki, the commander of the volunteer army. Really? Is that thing even possible? Then I left the rest to the surprised Masayuki. Apparently, the story became like, after persuading the Demon Lord, he made me to definitely promise to protect the town. As expected from the hero Dano. Really reliable. Like that, he receives the praise from the town citizens. Masayuki observed the spectacle with a complicated face. But, even with this expression, Hiro Dano is still not yet satisfied. That's right, that's right. Hiro Dano will protect this town. We can be at peace if we entrust everything to him. Such interpretations are made. There was no one that noticed Masayuki suffering. Thus, the surface town was moved entirely to the 101st floor of the labyrinth. The 100th floor and the 95th floor changed places. It shifts every single floor, and so the defense system was perfectly established. Or rather, it might be impossible for those troops to go past the 90th floor. Because even with supplies, several days are their limit. As they can't use the inn inside the labyrinth, such thing as breaking through is impossible. The remodeled soldiers could go through 2 weeks without eating and drinking, so Shinji and Ko said, but it's unthinkable for them to capture the labyrinth in 2 weeks. Oh well, I can't be careless. I will think about it. At the time that side had already come to attack. There's also the possibility that they keep going inside the labyrinth, but it might be useless to think about that for now. Well, with such feeling I prepared the preparations. The town around the labyrinth is isolated, and Gerudo's 2nd Corps with 17,000 people was deployed as the frontage of Tempest. Inside there were 10,000 volunteer soldiers and a corps of 50,000 monsters were waiting. Because the surrounding countries will also receive the news that the Empire had moved, they could succeed in organizing their army quickly, but it might probably will be too late. I wasn't able to summon them before the war, but the Empire's movement exceeds my expectation. After all, I only asked them to organize and requested to maintain the status quo in a standby state. The worst case is we got besieged and waiting for reinforcements, but in that case it's already a losing battle. Oh well, it depends on the situation. Well then, the preparations of this side were completed as well, so let's start the war formally. The Jura Great Forest, my territory as a demon lord, has already been invaded by the tank force. As to not make the enemy realize it that our side foresees everything, I left them alone until the preparation was complete. The situation is already a territory invasion, but let's give them warning with a feel like we have just noticed them. By the way, I dispatched the newcomer to each corps as an intelligence officer. Gobuta, while looking dubiously. A woman who doesn't have business with the battle is unfit for the 1st Corps, you know. Sue said so, but that woman's true identity is Testarossa. You will be killed by me, so, she said, and Gobuta fell silent. I mean, that way seems more interesting one. Let's wait expectantly for him to start. Gasp, or something like that later. In contrast to Gobuta, Gable has matured. There are many circumstances that I don't understand, so I'm counting on you. So he said when I introduced him to Ultima. Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera. To be honest, the one with the cruelest personality among these three demon dukes might be Ultima. Gobuta might be in danger if I swapped the one sent to his core. On that point, Gable seemed to have taken a liking to Ultima. That's great, that's great. Although I inform them that while obeying the general's order, their true identity must never be exposed, but I feared that they would do something without any hesitation. While still obeying the order, and yet, perform a retribution at the enemy. Ultima seems to be a person who will do such kind of thing. Gable, it seems you have saved your own life after I had warned you to not get cocky. Therefore, the current amusement is only Gobuta. Oh well, as for Testarossa, which I dispatched as an intelligence officer, they would be obedient in the beginning, while wait and see. As long as it's in the limits of my order. So, I get in contact with Gobuta. First of all, issuing the warning. Well, who should I pick? Gobuta was lacking in showiness, Gable was a hidden force for the time being as he was on standby in the air. If it comes to this, Testarossa, I entrust this to you. Yes, thank you very much. I will meet your expectations surely. I order Testarossa. Oh well, if it's her, I will not have to worry that she's going to die even if the Empire doesn't want useless talks and attack her. It's a farce, but it's necessary to be cliché. It's alright even if I exterminate them all without saying anything, but a demon lord needs to put up a performance too. Lieutenant General Gastar, who was Calgurio's confidant, lied on his back at his personal use command vehicle placed behind the latest tank corps, listening to the situation of the great forest's surroundings. His position as Lieutenant General was appropriate as Gastar's ability is high. He possesses ability to control sound, and he also possesses ability to finely analyze the situation just by hearing various sounds, unique skill called Musician 3. Also, he can give specific instructions using a special wave, and he can give an order only to his allies even during a scuffle. In addition, he had the hidden trump card that can cause cytoclasis using soundwave cannon, and he was an influential person who held a high-ranking position within the Empire. That Lieutenant General Gastar notices that the surrounding sounds suddenly ceased and so, gave a halt order to the entire army. A short time later after he issued that order, he saw 3 people walked from the forest's direction. They weren't an ordinary traveler, and no one would think that this is just a chance encounter. A beautiful woman was leading the 3, she possessed a beauty that can't be thought to be a human's for. Her scarlet hairs flowed lovely and made her good looks stand out. But, on contrary with that beautiful face, her body was wrapped in a formal military uniform. The 2 people who followed on her rear were similar. A middle-aged handsome man who seemed to be strict and a bit fat man of unknown age wore a military uniform with the same design. Gastar understood and had no doubts that these 3 people were the Demon Lord's subordinates. When the woman stopped her walk, she bowed and had a sweet smile towards their direction. Everyone, nice to meet you for the first time. My name is Testarossa. I'm a retainer of the great Demon Lord Rimuru, the master of this area. Then, the business I have today is. I will overlook this if you all leave right now. But, I will not pardon it further if you all went in more than this. To convey these words of my master. So, that woman Testarossa seems to be her name, said, at the same time the man behind her lightly waved his hands. A wall of flame appeared at the moment 1m in front of the most forward invading tank. The wall of flame vanishes instantly, leaving a burnt mark on the ground that became a straight line. You all already understands, right? When you pass this line, your lives will forfeit. People who don't have the resolution mustn't pass it. Well then, have a good day. 5. Testarossa turns back from that spot after she leave behind a graceful bow. The men behind her followed her to leave the place. They said what they want to say one-sidedly, without even considering this side at all. Their conducts instigated Gastar's anger. Do it. Gastar briefly gave an order to the sniper. Receiving the order, the soldier who held the sniper rifle take aims on Testarossa. And then, silently a soundless type magic bullet was shot. Testarossa, who turned around, deepens her smile and laughs evilly. The magic bullet which should pierce her body was, Precisely, stopped by Testarosa's delicate index finger. The bullet initial velocity reaches 3 times of speed of sound and it's a lump of undetected magic power. At the same time of bullet impact that magic power will be released, that bullet which should kill and wounding the target surely was just plucked in the mid-flight without any problem and was lightly thrown away. Just like dealing with a worthless toy. And then, the 3 walk away without turning around again and leave without saying anything. Fear and confusion almost bursting inside Gastar's mind, but he suppressed it with his willpower. The ordinary soldier didn't understand what just happened. Only himself and the sniper that could notice what just happened. Inside Gastar's mind, fear and humiliation were hanging on the scales, and which one was the humiliation? Don't be confused. The victory is dedicated to His Majesty the Emperor. All troops, charge. The tank corps started to advancing all at once to the Gastar's loud voice command. They stepped over the warning line easily and the war had begun. 1. Rimuru is so mean to go Buta XD. 2 is like a stage play, drama, act etc. 3. Inshusha, the one who do musical performance / play musical instrument. 4. She's so beautiful that he doubt that a human can have that face XD. 5. Testarosa use Gokujin which used by girls. You will see this often if you read Kenkyo Kenjutsu that been translated by Este-san. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 152, Great War Outbreak, Agitation and Resolution. Great War Outbreak, Agitation and Resolution. The war had begun. It started earlier than I had expected. The final warning line that Testarosa pointed out was stepped over by the Empire's forces without any hesitation. At that moment, the Eastern Empire and Monsters country Tempest fell into a state of war. As an immediate response, Benimaru's instructions were transmitted to the 1st and the 3rd Corps via Thought Link. The 2 forces of the Tempest military began mobilizing simultaneously. Since the power of the tank cannon was unknown, it was suicidal to stay in the same position carelessly. There was still some distance left to traverse before both armies made contact, but we couldn't be careless as the effective range of the enemy's weapon was still not clear. The most striking difference between the former world's and this world's tank might be its shorter barrel. Inside the Jura Great Forest where trees grew densely, there existed some trade routes. The tank corps came invading from the east, passed through the meadows and crossed the large river, but its turret length wouldn't cause any trouble when rotating the gun turret even inside a forest with its dense trees. It was questionable whether this had any effect on its accuracy and range, but judging from the performance of the weapons they were carrying such as the rifle from a while ago, I thought that this situation was clearly problematic. The rifle from a while ago was silent and had no recoil. I could not confirm its silence as it was only a detailed scene projected onto the large screen that couldn't reproduce the audio. If there was someone on the actual site, they could use a video crystal to transmit the video on the monitor together with the audio, but I couldn't reproduce the audio using surveillance magic. Oh well, as the magic processes the image's wavelength via a high-altitude light source, lag would surely occur if I tried to transmit the audio. Only, this was not at the level that Raphael could correct. Is it easier to understand if I use an analogy of thunder? Since there was a several-second lag from the light, it wouldn't be able to transmit if it was also burdened with sound. That was why I couldn't determine whether the rifle from before was silent or not from the image of the large screen, but it became clear that the rifle was silent after the thought report coming from Testarosa. In this case, it could be said that this gun was a magic tool. It substituted gunpowder with a magic formula. Certainly, the tank would have the same technology with no recoil, high precision to some extent, and a lack of sound. What needed to be determined was its range and power. I was not fighting personally, but it was more worrisome than what I had thought just from watching my companions fight. But, the only thing I could currently do was assess the situation. Let's watch this fight attentively. Before situation progressed, I stated my opinion of using the improved physics magic, Megiddo, God's Wrath. But, Benimaru rejected that idea probably after he had consulted with Raphael. There seemed to be a few reasons for this. First, to begin walking on the road as a country, they couldn't always rely on the demon lord that was their king me. If they were aware that this was their country and didn't have any intention of defending their own country, then they didn't have the qualifications to live in this country. That was the first reason. The next one was the weakness of Megiddo, God's wrath. It was a formidable magic that I could activate while sitting inside the control room. However, there would be some countermeasures made once its materials are exposed. Because I exterminated everyone last time, there was no information leaked about Megiddo, God's wrath. But, Benimaru explained that in this kind of war, if I used it carelessly, there was bound to be a survivor, and it was certain that Megiddo, God's wrath, would be dealt with immediately. Its real identity was of high-temperature rays of bundled sunlight, and evasion by sight was almost impossible. However, some degree of protection could be acquired if one was coated with materials that possessed a heat-insulating effect. I judged that it was not easy to destroy the tank when the tank core appeared. I might not be able to penetrate the tank if I didn't raise the power and increased its temperature to 10,000 degrees. Also, I could predict that there would be no blazing explosion as it was not powered by fuel. I might penetrate it, but it might not stop the tank's movement. I could said that its power was tremendous for anti-personnel magic, but it was a different story when facing such modern weapons. Perhaps, it would be easier to just blow them all away with a normal nuclear strike magic. In that case, it was necessary to deal with the magician who put up the barrier first, and in the end it would proceed into a war where we would be dragged into a bog of wars, and this was not a story that would end out well. Then, should I only aim at the personnel? So I thought, but I could comprehend that this was impossible, even for me. I was peerless against Pharma's kingdom. It was possible because I had confronted them on the site personally. If I was going to shoot precisely, I needed to prepare various relay points to utilize the reflection of the light. That was clearly impossible while looking through a large screen. Still, this was because I couldn't accurately grasp the space with magic power perception since there was space between me and the battlefield. So for long-ranged attacks, it will always come down from the sky. I surely understood Benimaru's argument, because it could be expected that they would take measures against it if I used it hurriedly. It seemed I needed to ascertain the situation before I used it. Then, my job was to watch, since I gave Benimaru the right to command. With such reasons, I was watching the battlefield. Gobuta's corps moved to the flank smoothly with perfectly coordinated movements. Most likely, the Empire forces would try to grasp their position with monster detection magic. From here on, it was a match of skill and speed. Gobuta was going as Benimaru's will, striking the flank of the tank corps with the speed of thunder. They were quicker than the rotation of the tank turret, and their aim was to slip into the tank from the front. They withdrew after delivering a blow to the infantry unit which was placed to protect the blind spot of the tank turret. Their refined beautiful movements were projected on the large screen. I could clearly tell that their mobility was high, even from the image which Sui's intelligence photography corps sends. Like a huge monster running through the battlefield as it pleased. At the same time, a battle had also begun in the sky. The Third Corps led by Gable, which were hidden in the sky, attacked the airships. The enemy seemed considerably surprised by this and was not able to deal with them immediately. As a result, they succeeded in sinking about 3 of them in an instant. It was the result of the repeated hit-and-run tactic used by all the members to attack in waves without being greedy. Even Gable had handled the training of his subordinates considerably well, and he seems to have acquired a remarkable air combat force. There wasn't much power in the fireballs breathed out by the wyverns. But, maybe thanks to everyone concentrating their attacks on a single spot, the numerous fireballs that they breathed out penetrate the airship's magic barrier. However, the original strategy was to attack the ground from the sky. Even though they never assumed that the battle would become an air-to-air battle, what might be called a great strenuous effort had brought about a splendid result. Gobuta and Gable. Those two showed the great results of their training and achieved result in their first actual combat. However, not everything would go smoothly. It would be proved immediately. Lieutenant General Gastar bitterly glared at the approaching cavalry. These damned people are getting cocky. He clears his mind, which was filled with anger as the monsters approach from the front. This reminded him of the terror planted by the demon named Testarossa with scarlet hair not too long ago. The monsters who can only do hit and run may not be able to damage the tanks no matter how fast they moved. He quickly orders his subordinates to prepare the tank cannon. Along with the shell type that packed magic essence and increased the destructive power, the tanks contained another attack that fired a converged magic essence gathered from the air like a beam. If it's a shell, it's possible to accomplish rapid fire even if the quantity is limited. In case it's a beam, energy charge takes time of a little over 3 minutes, but there's no quantity limitation for it. Because it's possible to alternate between these two types of attacks, the beam type is shot first and the normal shell is shot during the time it takes for the next beam to be charged. The tank's cannon preparation was completed according to Lieutenant General Gastar's order. In the first place, what are those guys in the sky doing? They should have started bombarding them from the sky to sweep the ground. Gastar commanded the tank in the outer circumference of the core to aim and shoot the cannons at the surrounding trees while getting angry at the carelessness of his colleagues. The tank core started expanding the battlefield by mowing down the surrounding trees while alternating between the two types of shells. In the first place, despite how large the trade route is, it's cute narrow if 3 tanks form a line. Because they were at a disadvantage as the enemy was setting up surprise attacks with speed much higher than a wild animal from the gaps of the overcrowded trees. First of all, they began to create an advantageous situation by transforming the battlefield. The subordinates who received the order handled the task properly without being flustered. The neighboring trees are mowed down without taking much time, and a space wide enough to operate the tanks was created. As the result, the superiority of the first corps led by Go-Buta was lost as the obstacles they used to cover and hide were removed. A fierce battle also started in the sky. At first, they were caught off guard and suffered some losses, but Major General Farragut, who commanded 100 airships of the Aerial Fighter Legion, was a capable man. In the current mission, the cornerstone of the anti-Feldera containment strategy was the airship, which could be called an air fortress that had the largest magic canceller device installed. Piloting it was the elite wizard class member who commands the magicians. Adjustment of the magic amplification cannon was vital. Also, the magic barrier was laid out to always protect the airship. Furthermore, wall shield, which is a magic to deal with physical attacks, is amplified to prevent attacks to the airship. A superficial attack will not surpass it. Actually, after the first wave of attacks, the airship didn't suffer any damage from the Wyvern's fireball. Major General Farragut unconsciously sprouted a smile and regained his composure. After becoming calm, he felt resentment as 3 airships had sunk after being surprised by the likes of Wyvern. The deployment of shield was not done in time, and the attack surpassed the magic barrier, and became the proof of his carelessness. With such anger he faced the approaching Wyverns. Counterattack. To magicians who stand by at the magic amplification cannon station, begin the spell chant. So, he issued an order. The spell of the magician who usually fire it was amplified to 20 times of its power by the magic amplification cannon. It's a cannon only in name, actually it's just a pedestal with an ability to amplify the used magic. A huge spell control orb was made with a magic stone of high purity originally. Orbs which were attached to staffs were as big as a fist due to spell amplification effects. Various large-scale magics were able to be cast. In the battlefield of the sky, lights of dazzling magic spells danced wildly with lightning, blizzard, fire, and wind. Of course, Gable and his corps, which became the targets, couldn't be said to be safe from it. I, who was watching the progress, rose from my seat. Several of Go-Buta's subordinates were blown off after receiving the explosion of the tank cannon. Attacked by large-scale magic, the Wyverns fell together with the lizardmen who were riding them. Casualties began to appear at the same time the initial superiority was lost. Casualties were expected. No, I expected it, but I might have been optimistic. I will win without a big deal. Since Raphael didn't say anything, I had the naive thought that there would be no problems. But, reality was different. Well, that is so because it's a war after all. It can't be a natural thing to win without any damage received by this side. I felt anger and agitation to an extent I couldn't say anything as I clearly saw my naivete. Please sit down, Rimuru-sama. It's within the predictions. There's no problem. Benimaru said to me with a calm aura. To his words, I reacted as if something was exploding inside of me. Can't you see that causalities have appeared? Therefore, I will go out and use Megiddo, God's wrath. But, my words were interrupted in the middle. That's no good. As the Supreme Commander, I can't allow the king to be exposed to danger. Above all, the enemy side has the dangerous person named Yuuki. In addition, I heard that the Emperor's Imperial Guards are strong. There might be other strong people in the Empire. Without knowing the enemy's war potential, for the king to go out to the front is out of question. Please believe in us. I feebly sat down on the chair because of his words. The unpleasant feeling that was neither anger nor agitation didn't fade away. There was nothing I could do, because Benimaru's words were correct. Shinhu was standing behind me, Sui who stands by the side too. There's nothing to say about Diablo, Shina who was looking at me anxiously. I realized that everyone already prepared for victims to appear. Also, it wasn't only the people in this room. Perhaps, everyone that was fighting on the front too. With their resolution to become the bait to lure out the strong people, they would stand in the battlefield. It was only me that had no resolution. And then at that time. Therefore, I have to be perfect. So, I thought that I heard the voice somewhere. Even you too, are you worrying about me? But, now it's alright. Me grieving all the time would be rude to those people. Sorry, I was not calm for a moment. When I apologized to Benimaru, he nods. Rest assured. Victory will certainly be yours. So, he promised me. His usual carefree face was not there, now it is the serious expression of a great general that held the life of his soldiers in his hand. To his words, I felt my agitation, troubles, and unpleasant feelings disappear. I had already prepared to kill my enemy even if I had to die with him. But, for someone to die for my sake, I didn't think about it too deeply. It was necessary for me to accept it. That act is done not only for my sake, it's for their family and the country that protects them, for the existence that symbolizes them all. And that is me. For this reason, as my compensation for their action, defeat was not allowed. Of course. Convey my word to everyone. Okay. Yes. By all means. I obtained Benimaru's approval and displayed the maximum ability of thought control, and gave out the order to all subordinates joined to the genealogy of my soul while putting forward all my emotions. Hear this. Defeat the enemy with all your power. It's not necessary to show mercy and there is no need to go easy. With all of the power that you have, eliminate the enemy immediately. Benimaru nods to my words and smiles appear on the faces of the executives. That order meant one thing. Release the restrained power. Properly understanding the meaning of my words, the monsters resumed their action. And then, my words would greatly change the state of the war. One light travels at 300.000.000 m/s while sound travels only at 343 m/s. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 153, Great War Outbreak, the beginning of the trampling. 153. Great War Outbreak, the beginning of the trampling. Every monster on the battle heeded the words of their master, Rimuru, through their souls. Their absolute ruler who has accepted their loyalty and trust. Their hearts were filled with joy and left to their welling impulse, their magic power was unleashed. As they lived in the town, their magic essence which were suppressed in consideration of their environment was unleashed. The surrounding concentration of magic essence went up a level. They no longer fear anything. With that impulse, they dashed towards the battlefield. Gobuta signaled his aide with his eyes, beckoned him over. In this battlefield, moving as a group would instead breed danger of being targeted. As the result of observation and discussion, arbitrarily won with wisdom King Raphael, it was concluded that the aim of the tank's main armament was done visually. Thus, if the enemy treated the group as a single monster, their actions would be easily predicted and them aimed at. From now, all squad are permitted to attack freely. Ogre Wolf, Star Wolfo and Icon, will become the leader and lead the green numbers, green core. Even while everyone are acting freely, our thought are always linked, so don't forget to cooperate. It's not the time for me to be playing around, Sue. Our Lord is watching us, Sue. Because of that I can't do an unsightly behavior, I will get serious now, Sue. Looking at Gobuta's eyes, the aide realized Gobuta's seriousness. The seriousness of his superior that rarely seen. May the fortunes of war with you, so the aide said and immediately issued the command to the army. TN note, the original blessing was, which is an encouragement and a blessing for safe returns during the Sengoku era. And then, don't get caught up. General Gobuta will going to be serious. The aide didn't forget to say so. The ogre wolves who were originally joined alongside him too, and as Gobuta's subordinates, they knows pretty well that Gobuta is a genius. His leadership ability was abnormally high, and under Gobuta's teaching everyone's skill progressed abnormally. Not to mention, Gobuta's individual combat ability can't be summed up by a single word: genius. Gobuta's command ability was completely no good, but such a thing didn't become a problem due to his excellent intuition. In addition, it's to the degree one would think he received suggestions from someone hidden, he make a decision when he sees the chance. If that Gobuta concluded that the whole army moving as one was no good, then to disperse might be the correct answer. Also, Gobuta with transform, demon wolf fusion, he got from his unique skill become my power, demon wolf summon. He was strong to the extent that even if the ogre wolves come at him together, they were not a match for him. Because they knew this well, their action was swift. Gobuta pushed forward to the enemy line alone. He seen the tank's barrel faces his direction. Well then, it's time to rampage Su. Transform. In an instant, black fog wrapped Gobuta. I've been waiting, Gobuta. Let's show our power to Rimuru-sama. To respond Ranga's speech in his mind. We'll show it in a good place, Su. Let's go, Su. The intermagic power was unleashed. The black fog that swallowed Gobuta disappeared, a single goblin warrior clad in a black wolf manifested from it. A humanoid black wolf with two ominous horns protruding. Tank shells that come flying hardness bounced off its black fur that changed in hardness. When Gobuta howled, black lighting pouring down from the sky onto the tank core, creating dazzling light as it clashed with the defense barrier applied to the tank. Observing the situation, Gobuta perceived that it has effect on the electric shock effect caused by the lighting strikes. However, it didn't seem that the electric shock-proof ability was perfect, as the lighting seems to give serious damage on the precision machine parts. Gobuta laughed. This isn't a big deal, Su. Well then, let's get started. Gobuta ran through the battlefield gleefully. Reaching speeds beyond sound, the Empire's tank corps could no longer follow him with naked eyes. The tank corps fell into disarray inside the resounding thunder. And then... well, how far you can follow me, Su? Dance with wolves, Gale Demon Wolf's dance. A black gale dashed through the battlefield and the tank corps was assailed by destruction caused by its sonic boom. Before long, the shock waves became a tornado and it generated Tornado Storm of Ruin, which exceeded Storm of Ruin. With extremely calculated movement, the enemy force was efficiently annihilated. That was Dance with Wolves, Gobuta's dreadful anti-army annihilation technique. One of the battlefield ended in this way. When Gobuta begun being peerless on the ground, changes also occurred in the sky. For the third corps led by Gable. Soon after Gable heard Rimuru's voice. Hear this. We shall go down the path of Azura. He declared so. The monsters tightening their expressions simultaneously. Gable's words continues. Blue numbers, blue corps, you guys are inexperienced. Therefore, support the battle on the ground. Don't do the impossible, just proceed like the training. However, the numbers of that flying thingy's airship are still. There's no problem. You guys don't need to worry, display your power freely. It's regrettable that they didn't train for air battle, but it's no use even if they think about it now. That was a topic for after the war. The blue numbers heeded Gable's order and left the sky battle stage. Separating from Gable's command, each one of them supported the ground corps. The momentum of the ground corps would accelerate it as they received support from the sky. When Gable was sure of that, he glared at the front ward of the Empire Army Aerial Legion. Hiryu, who is the ruler of the sky? It is us, Tempest's Hiryu. That's right. For people that defile our sky, we must get rid of them. This is the order of Rimuru-sama. Everyone, use all of your power. Don't let your ego be swallowed, all right? All members, Dragon Warrior transformation. Oh. The Hiryu responded to Gable's order. their trump card called Dragon Warrior Transformation. Their fighting power increased tremendously, but so did their ferocity. Because they couldn't suppress the destructive impulse, this ability had been sealed until now. However, Rimuru's order was to reveal all of their power, an order like that. There was no reason to hesitate. Dragon Mode, Dragon Body Change. All members of Hiryu unleashed their original power simultaneously. That was the moment when the true combat ability of Tempest's strongest core was released. Dark red muscles swelled instantly and their outer skin was covered completely with jet black dragon scales. Their stature grew 1.5 times, and their volume and mass increased greatly too. Their offensive power and defensive power, it goes without saying, but it was incomparable to before the transformation. If they lost their sense of self now, then they were nothing but a mere incarnation of power, but they succeeded in keeping their ego splendidly. This was the moment when a true dragon warrior was born. TN note, I imagined flying pandas. Each person bring down one ship. Can you guys do it? Of course. Alright, let's go for it. The dragon warriors move simultaneously to Gable's order. The Empire's treasured aerial fighter legion was already no more than pitiful lambs. Because the special effects of the dragon warrior transformation magic has no effect on them. Even natural effect like Megiddo has no effect against them. A barrier that nullified all kind of magic attacks as well as natural effects was generated spontaneously and protected their body. Their energy was strengthened until it can be said to be equal to beyond a rank EP, 40.00060.000, that power exceeded a high rank devil. Besides, as for Gable, who was originally a strong individual, he transformed into a fierce warrior boasting an absurd amount of energy. And that power. Here I go. Take this, my special move. Tornado Crash, Water Spear Vortex Strike. The current of air swirled into a vortex, it converged the moisture in the atmosphere at one point and that big vortex of magic power swallowed one airship whole. The magic power barrier knitted with magic power of more than 100 magicians was broken without any resistance at all. Correction, it sunk the ship instantly. Gable excitedly. Fuhahahaha. Now, let's keep it go steadily. For those who couldn't even sink a ship, you guys understand what will happen later, right? Said those words to member of Hiryu who stiffened. The surviving airships were already cut down to below 100 ships. It was a situation where several people would not get a prey. At the same time as they realized it, every member of the Hiryu rushed on towards the airship each one of them aimed for. Major General Farrago was in shock of the spectacle in front of his eyes. Shields were deployed in front of the air fortress in addition to the magic power barrier that always protected it. One of such airship was sunk by a single strike of that monster. It was a rare race called a Dragonute. It seems to possess fighting strength that earned them the nickname Humanoid Dragon. When there was only 100 ships left in the sky, he had an unpleasant premonition. Suddenly, he received a report from the observation team that the enemy power increased suddenly. Soon after he felt anxiety of seeing the Wyvern Riders withdraw, an abnormality happened. It was more precise to say that the phenomenon was called transformation. The remaining Dragonutes displayed fighting power that surpassed the Wyverns and they came attacking the airship. The airship fired amplified magic, yet it appeared to be completely ineffective. It was as if to say that the magic itself was ineffective. Kuhu, like there could be such a ridiculous thing. With magic canceller, it weakens the monster's strength to move. Using such principle, it's supposed to weaken them, but as the target's movement was too quick, it was not possible to catch them. But, to the individual whom was supposedly the enemy commander who delivered the first strike, Farrago felt that the effect of the weakening wasn't so significant. He understood that the enemy commander's strength was on a completely different dimension. It would be difficult to stop the movement of that individual if they didn't concentrate the wave of all magic canceller generating devices. Or perchance. No way, is that individual Feldera? Farrago consented to his thought instinctively. I see, he's weakened after the seal was removed, so the rumor said, but to have weakened and transformed to that form. No, on top of that, because he still has such strength, I can't imagine how strong he was before he was sealed. But, on the contrary, it will be easy to kill the current him. When Major General Farragut has such a realization and was about to order a concentrated attack. Hey? Do you not serve even tea to a guest here? I was thirsty though. 3. A beautiful girl with long bluish-purple hair styled as a ponytail, had sat on his aide's seat before anyone can noticed. She wore a military uniform, making her appearance unbefitting of her age. Where did she come from? No, there's something other than that. Who the hell are you? Hearing Farragut inquire for the girl's identity, his subordinates turn around and notice the girl. They didn't detect any abnormality inside the ship. And yet, that girl was there like it was natural. Who I am, you said? My name is Ultima. I came today to ask about various things. You guys are going to die soon, right? Therefore, before it happens, I want you guys to teach me about various things. The girl said such words with an innocent smile on her face. But, Farragut was familiar with the very indescribable feelings he felt from the girl. If you want to compare it, right, it's like when he was facing the high-ranking people with absolute strength of the Emperor Imperial Guards. No, any more than this was imprudent. No way. Did I feel fear? From such a girl. However, it's a fact that this girl was an abnormal existence as she invaded the ship by herself. Major General Farragut pulled out his military sword and took a stand against the girl. Farragut had quite the amount of confidence in his swordsmanship. He was confident that he wouldn't lost even against an active A-rank adventurer. The air around Farragut changed, an invisible thread of tension formed between him and the girl. What do you want to ask? Farragut asked the girl. That girl Ultima nods joyfully. The structure of this ship and how to operate it. The war potential in the Empire. Are there any strong individuals? Everything excluding the current attacking corps. Well, amongst other things. You don't need to worry. Because even if you don't talk, I can steal your knowledge on my own. While declared so brazenly. You are an unfortunate fool. The one in front of you is one of such strong individual. Farragut immediately swung down his sword that he raised overhead, aiming at the chance when Ultima was talking. A sword's skill he often taught his subordinate, a sword slash at the level of a master. A sure kill strike, not even a devil could avoid it and would be bisected. Then, I will ask, starting with you. He heard a voice from behind. Far from cutting Ultima, who should have sat on the chair, Farragut's sure kill strike couldn't touch her at all as it cut empty air. And, the impossible thing was, the one who should have sat on the chair in front of him has moved to his rear before he realized. What? When Farragut turned around in a panic, a round mess of something came flying. Splat. It hit the wall, leaving behind a stain. One of the magicians who lost his head had his body collapsed onto the floor, convulsing as if it's still alive. It's not such a big deal. Here comes more. So she said. Ultima keep repeating the act of plucking off heads and then throw it away after touching it for several seconds. The bridge was transformed into hell, died with screams and terror. All hands, use magic canceller. Aim and concentrate it on the demon in front of you. Magicians who fell into panic and terror regained their sanity because Farragut's words. Everyone who carrying magic canceller radiated it towards Ultima in panic. Oh, is this thing magic canceller? That new weapon, right? That's said to have a tremendous effect on all kind of monster. But, is there any meaning of doing this? Ultima muttered a question while tilting her head lovely. Haha, you're done now, bitch. Don't think you can get away by bluffing. Farragut regained his composure and sent a signal to his subordinate. The soldiers pull out their gun simultaneously and aimed it towards Ultima. Against demons, use the annihilation bullet. She is the worst archdemon class. Don't let your guard down. The soldiers replaced their bullet as Farragut ordered while the enemy's movement was sealed by magic canceller. But I don't really understand. This thing used theory of disturbing the magic essence and obstructing its existence, isn't it? The effect become big towards a being whose body is composed of magic essence, right? But towards people like me who has received a physical body, isn't this thing meaningless? In addition, this thing may work against low-rank demon, but it's meaningless against high-rank being, Because for us magic occurs naturally when we think about it, just like how it's natural for you guys to breathe. Like so. Simultaneously when she said so, Ultima's figure disappeared and one of the soldiers lost his head. She moved instantly and shown how she murdered a soldier. So? I merely moved and a person's head was sent flying. In your way of speaking, I moved exceeding the speed of sound, right? But, why were there no shockwaves? Because this movement is magic. And then, she lightly shook her wrist and it seemed to be blurred for a moment after. Immediately following was, bam. Together with the impact sound, a soldier's head exploded. This way, according to the physics law, I can even send out the shock wave like so. Farraga's mind was finally able to comprehend Ultima's words. She explained with such mysterious feeling as if she speak foreign words of a country far away. His instinct refused to understand. Archdemon? Is this what they're really like? Thinking based on his ability, even if he couldn't win against an Archdemon, he thought he could at least stall for time. If there were several people with his abilities, then it's not an unbeatable enemy. But there was no chance of victory even if he struggled so hard against the girl in front of him. Hi. Monster. The soldiers and magicians were falling into a complete panic state. Because there stood an existence that embodied death itself, it could be said that the reaction was natural. Well then. Now, I shall resume the questioning. That was the last words those people who fell into terror heard, the voice of a girl who said it cheerfully. Several minutes later, Ultima, who had stole all their knowledge, left the bridge satisfied. She was an intelligence officer, it was her duty to take the information back. She thought that the results were satisfactory, but it was judged by her, but by her superior. And then, when she was about to jump out from the ship. Oh, right. We're permitted to use our full strength. She muttered so as she remembered about it and invoked one magic. Immediately after Ultima had jumped, the magic was activated and the ship was engulfed in a fireball. It was a type of nuclear strike magic, nuclear flame, flame of destruction, that completely leaving no trace behind. The fireball swelled up greatly and it caused an explosion. With a flame of super high temperature as the first wave of damage and the shock waves of the explosion that followed was the second wave. The ship exploded and scattered at all direction due to the flames. The ship's body became shrapnel that penetrate nearby ships. The shrapnel flew at beyond supersonic speed, increasing the damage inflicted. A large disaster occurred in the air, but the damage calculated towards the member of Hiryu was 0. Well, as some people couldn't achieve their assignment, there would be some people who suffered indirect damage later though. Such a thing was not something that had nothing to do with Ultima. Due to this large explosion, the battle was set. The Empire Air Force, which wasn't able to push forward advantageously since the start of the battle, was defeated with the shameful record of having all their ships sunk by the enemy. One self-acting / doing on its own accord. 2 ogre wolves / ogre wolves were the evolution of the star wolves and their rider. So they were once the same as Gobuta, ordinary soldier, before Gobuta become powerful and become Shitenu. 3 BTW, Ultima is a Bokako. She uses Boku to refer herself. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 154, Great War Outbreak, the Smiling Demon. Great War Outbreak, the Smiling Demon. Impossible, how can there be such an impossible thing? In a place a bit distant from the battlefield, Lieutenant General Gastar groaned these words as his face turned pale. An impossible, disastrous scene is spreads in front of his eyes. The prided tank corps was toyed by the Demon Wolf type Devil One that like a Demon One, and there's no doubt that there were already many tanks that got destroyed. Their defeat was already decisive, but the progress speed of the war was too fast that they had lost the timing for retreating. But, prompted by his words of reason that if the situation kept going as it is, reorganization will be difficult, Lieutenant General Gastar finally decided to give an order for retreat. However, that judgment was definitely too late. Ah? Certainly you wouldn't utter something like stopping, right? I already told you so. There will be no mercy if you went in. I may look like this, but I'm the type that keeps my promises. When I intruded to this world before, I would precisely fulfill the wish of the person whom summoned me. You may feel relieved. To you guys too, will precisely receive a retribution. A full smile was on her beautiful face. However, it only sprang terror inside Gastar's heart. Yo, you bastard. Ah? It seems you forgot about it. What an impolite gentleman. With beauty to the extent of being unforgettable, and her scarlet hair that was let fluttering. Testarossa had an expression like an affectionate mother who was looking at a child making a problem. Repressing his fear, Gastar was going to give an attack order to his subordinate. However, I don't really know what you're going to do, but your subordinates are sleeping. They seems tired, and will not get up anymore. So Testarossa whispered to his ear. Her movement speed was too fast. Even though he was not careless and he never took his eyes off of her. Also, the most frightful matter was that he didn't even heard a sound at all. Gastar's unique skill musician enables him to sense the enemy's movement from just the sound. No matter how much of an expert someone is, they couldn't prevent making a faint sound. It's possible for him to even grasp the heartbeat sounds. But, he didn't heard any sound at all. And, he noticed another frightening thing at that time. From his fallen down subordinates too, he heard no sound. Because they were all dead. Yo, you. Were you the one that killed my subordinates? To Gastar's shout. Ah? It's because I'm a bit hungry, so I only ate a bit, you know. Testarossa answered without being timid. You ate, you say? What do you eat? Yes, just a bit of the soul. Gastar was enraged as she told him as lightly as this. To vent that anger. Die, you damn demon. Mind Requiem, Spirit Death Funeral Tune. He scattered a killing sound to the surrounding space that has the special effect to influence the spirit and cause it to die. It was Lieutenant General Gastar's trump card that could even kill a spiritual life form. Despite this fact. Ah, a pleasant tune. It's too good to be made by a mere human. It's unfortunate that I need to kill an amazing musician like you. Testarossa muttered with a fascinated expression that was clouded with sadness. There didn't seem to be any effect at all. Gastar, who realized that, fell into despair. He was misled by her beautiful appearance, but the beautiful woman in front of his eyes was certainly not human. She also was an existence of an incredible high rank. Perhaps, she may be an even higher rank being than the currently rampaging demon wolf devil that was like an incarnation of violence. This monster will not be the only one, so Gastar foresaw the failure of the current Empire Army military operation. Furthermore, disaster-class monsters like Feldera were still not out. Please wait, let's make a deal. Ah? What kind of deal is it? I have a high-ranking position in the Empire. I'm familiar with military operation and I also hold the confidential information. I promise to be useful. Therefore, I only want you to spare my life. Gastar begs for his life by throwing away his shame and reputation. However, there's still light in his eyes. He looked at Testarossa's appearance with carefulness. It's because sounds of several people approaching were audible to Gastar's ear. Gastar thought by intuition of the identity of the people approaching him. Probably, it were people who sneaked in to give situation report and monitor the battlefield, the subordinates of the Empire Intelligence Bureau. The Intelligence Bureau staff, or so-called intelligence agent, are holders of first-class combat abilities. Although they has superior combat ability, they didn't participate in the rank-deciding battle. They belonged to the Empire Intelligence Bureau, and they wouldn't be transferred out from there. Konda Tatsuya, a cunning otherworlder. They were the diverse people who were active under him. If it's Konda Tatsuya, it will be not strange that he can assume a situation like this, and he might already have taken several countermeasures for it. Therefore, Gastar intended to buy some time by doing anything, even if it's begging for his life. However, his hope was smashed. Because all hope was used up in the moment they met Testarossa. Damn you demon, you revived. Unknown Agent 1. Shouting so, people who belonged to the Intelligence Bureau drew near Testarossa by sneaking under the cover of the general soldier and attacked her. Those people sealed off Testarossa's movement from three sides with the chain made from the weaved monster's fur. It's the strongest special move formation that can suppress high-rank monster, even an archdemon. The elites of the Intelligence Bureau which hunt monsters in teams of 3. I did it. Gastar raised a cheers inside his mind, at that time. Ah, oh my oh my. This is nostalgic. You guys are the one who defeated me before, right? I'm so happy. I was not able to eat to my heart's content because I was disturbed at that time. I haven't forgot the grudge from that time, you know. Even so. Will you be alright? To use the same technique once again like that time now. Testarosa's voice was heard with malice in it. Humph, you monster. This evil presence, you're the archdemon of that time. Unknown Agent 1. You already revived her. We will destroy your soul. Unknown Agent 2. This is not the right place for you. As long as we are here, we will not let you do as you like. Unknown Agent 3. Now, Gastardano. Leave this to us. Quickly give the retreat order. Unknown Agent 1. Gastar begins to move as he came to his sense after the 3 people talked to him. In panic, he was going to notify the entire army with his unique skill musician, but... Hey! Do you think I will allow such a thing? He felt the sensation of a delicate woman's hand on his neck that made his soul freezing cold. It's Testarossa, there's no need to see. The chain strengthened with holy silver and with monster fur woven into it, which had high performance of legend class, was ineffective as it was destroyed and broken. The 3 shaken people turned their eyes to Testarossa, who had moved to Gastar's back. Irritation and confusion appeared in their expression. They didn't see it at all how Testarossa destroyed the chain and when she moved. And then, another hardship attacked them. They heard a cute voice that was unbecoming to the battlefield from the sky. Testarossa, you still haven't killed them yet. Even though Rimuru-sama commanded us to let out all of our power, you will get scolded, you know. Unknown girl. A girl with bluish-purple long hair styled as a ponytail fell from the sky while saying those words. That girl seems to be the reinforcement for the demon in front of them, and the girl's way of talking suggests that the 2 were equal in rank and in addition has ability close to Testarossa's level. In a situation where even only one enemy was already hard, this kind of reinforcement was fatal. They were the elite of the Intelligence Bureau, which was the expert in killing demons. They took pride in being able to kill an archdemon class even if one of the 3 people was going one-on-one with it. Despite this, the suppression barrier, they were proud of, was broken in front of their eyes, and now another monster with horrifying presence, which seemed to be equal with the female demon, appeared. It was necessary to conclude that the situation was disadvantageous. Gastardano, pull back from this place at once, Unknown Agent 1. One of them began chanting transfer magic after notifying Gastar. The remaining 2 began to move in order to rescue Gastar. Just after that, I hate people that don't know true strength. Because I met familiar faces after a long time, unconsciously it became a long talk. Ultima, I request a memory extraction on this person. Oak. What will Testa do? Ultima. I am still not full. So, I will have a little meal. Because it's familiar faces from a long time ago, you see. Testarossa had a lovely smile. But, that smile was like a ill omen itself. The 3 people felt an ominous feeling from Testarossa's smile. They gave up on Gastar's rescue and decided to withdraw. However, transfer magic was not invoked. Impossible. How come? Unknown Agent. Testarossa sneered at the trembling spellcaster. What is strange? This is the right way of using magic canceller, right? Testarossa answered the 3 people's question and calmly steps forward. What did you say? Magic canceller. Unknown Agent 1. No way, even reproduction by magic. Unknown Agent 2. Via thought link, the demons were sharing information. So, using the skill reproduced from the information they obtained was like a child's play for them. However, such a thing was a talk of an unfathomable dimension for humans' common sense. It's not something that could be understood by the 3 Intelligence Bureau agents. The only thing they could understand was, you, what the hell are you? There's no way an archdemon has power to that extent. Unknown Agent 1. One of them shouts, painted over by fear. Testarossa deepened her smile as she happily heard the shout. Yes, it's so. I'm a higher existence than a mere archdemon. Or rather, I think that my status is different than an archdemon's though. Do you want to see it yourself? It's said when you don't understand something without me telling you. The answer of their question was affirmative, just like she said. And? Well then, though it's regrettable, farewell. So she announced. The situation was already too late when the three people understood the meaning of the words. They would reach death without understanding the true identity of the being they faced. Or, it might be good luck. From a profound darkness, black flame was summoned. Testarossa condensed the black flame to size of a fist and crushed it as it is. Testarossa, demon, smiles. Death streak, blessing of death. So, she whispered just like singing. At the moment the black flame was crushed in her hand, black light diffuses to the surroundings. That light has a property of penetrating almost all kind of substances. It's not a natural generated light. It had the characteristic of not causing physical destruction. When the light penetrates a living creature, it affects the genetic arrangement. Almost all living creatures were killed forcibly because of the forced genetic rewriting. It's the extremely evil magic of death. However, this light had another aim, or so says the legend that had been handed down from the past. Only someone who has the ability to storage his soul or spiritual life forms can withstand this magic. It's also possible for someone who can revive from a complete physical body destruction. Even the smallest amount of the light was difficult to be defended with magic, and there was no way to defend against it physically. The only countermeasure against it was a holy light barrier. The probability of death when bathed by this light was 99,9999%. 1 in a million people will get his body changed into a monster and he will get a long life. In other words, this is actually a blessing magic that sort out suitable persons with aptitude for demonic attribute. However, the success example of the monsterification of this magic was not existent. Perhaps it was a story that had a moral of, the demon will lies about the hope. Therefore this magic was the worst forbidden spell. It was the ultimate forbidden magic with purpose only for killing living creatures, which was kind of a nuclear strike magic but without any physical damage at all. Within the radius of 500 m almost everything was devastated by a great storm of ferocious death. Testarossa has completed grasped that there was no ally within the range with magic power perception. For a demon like herself, they wouldn't be exempted from this magic. Because the magic was created with the purpose of killing demon and human, all living creatures alike. The regrettable part was that it did kill any living being within the range regardless of friend or foe. It may be expanded to a radius of 10 kilometers if used without any restraint, but it would involve allies too. So, it was necessary to specify the range to 500 m. It looks like you have annihilated everything in this area. For the information of the toy called Tank, we could take home the undamaged actual thing you see. Oh. Yes, for that reason, I only swept clean the human beings. If you annihilated them from the beginning with this magic, any surviving enemy would be finished though, Testa. It can't be helped, you know. Rimura-sama said we should fight. Even so, it was good that there was a turn for me too. However, should I not break the toy which floats in the sky too? Oh. That's right, Ul's magic was too flashy. The collecting of samples may be difficult because of that, you see, Testa. I know. I thought that I failed too. That thing is too fragile. I only intended to destroy only one, but a lot were broken, Ul. It can't be helped. You obtained the information, right? Then, let's think that there's no problem, Testa. So they discussed. Testarossa and Ultima ended the conversation. Meanwhile, the work of collecting the souls was done thoroughly. At the same they were killed by death streak, their souls were accurately reaped. In fact, the possibility of them changing into monsters was only present when the soul was left behind. When the reaping of the soul was done at the same time like now, the survival rate completely becomes 0. Of course, Lieutenant General Gastar and the 3 people from the Intelligence Bureau too failed to resist it and were already dead. Testarossa didn't have any deep emotions even when she sees the final moments of the people who defeated her in the past. As they were never within Testarossa's thoughts from the start, it can be said as natural. Thus, The victory of the monster's country Tempest was set into stone like this as the strategic headquarters of the Empire forces completely became silent. However, that didn't mean the end of war. The possibility of the Empire army surrendering disappeared completely when the strategic headquarters also disappeared. The battlefield shifted into a war of annihilation. 1. This is Majin. 2. This is Akuma. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 155, First Battle Victory in Enemy Main Forces. First Battle Victory in Enemy Main Forces. Let out all of your power. I remembered that I did say such words. It's alright, I'm not yet on the age where I went senile. 1. Because only 3 years had passed since I was reincarnated. Such worry like that is unnecessary. But, were those words that I had said was really mine? Because I want to doubt the event happening on the large screen in front of me, so I only accidentally spilled out my thoughts. On the large screen in front of me, Tempest Army's overwhelming victory was projected. That's good. I didn't have any trouble of it, although the contents were too gruesome. The one-sided infringement war was progressing to astonishing state. Gobuta dashed through the battlefield with coolness unlike normal Gobuta, and he smashed a tank with a dash. Gable being Gable, he transformed himself into an appearance like a dragon devil too that looked strong, and then he smashed one enemy ship by one strike with an abnormally high energy 3. It was not only Gable, every member of Hiryu were not a laughing matter as they transformed too. I immediately realized they used Dragon Warrior transformation, but I didn't think that they could handle it without going berserk. And then the deciding factor was the explosion that occurred in the sky. I didn't know whether the culprit being playful or not, but a heat nuclear explosion occurred in the sky and it engulfed the Empire's airship force with its blaze. At this point, the flying force of the Empire side fell into a state of unmaintainable. With that as the start, Tempest's grand offense began. Even in a modern war, a helicopter was tremendously advantageous against a tank. Similar to that, the breath attacks that conducted by Blue Number's wyverns from the sky dealt a great damage to the Empire Army's ground forces. But there's a reason for why they were able to perform it smoothly. It was because the action of the intelligence officers. Maybe those guys has eyes that could discern strong people, not only sorting the enemy's captains and general soldiers, they made a bloodbath of any noticeable person. Actually, even if the analysis was by Raphael, it was supported by those four, Veyron, Moss, Cien and Zonda, that kept the enemy a company, which were strong people boasting power beyond normal strength. I feared that other worlder may hid and lay hidden amongst those strong people. I guess they would be spotted easily and would be taken care of before they could took any action. How terrifying, the discerning eyes that could distinguish strong people. Meanwhile, an abnormality occurred in the strategic mobilization headquarters located in the rear of the Empire Army. Projected on the large screen was Testarossa and Ultima standing there smiling. I was not able to confirm other living people. Several hundred tanks of the remaining force stop their movement, all soldiers of the supply maintenance in the rear fall down too. Their number may be approximately on scale of 10,000 people. Although I didn't understand what was happening, I was able to somewhat understood only that a dangerous thing had happened. Raphael. Answer. The use of large-scale annihilation magic death streak was confirmed. Answered so. When I heard the explanation of that magic that annihilate living being with demonic death rays was a variety of nuclear strike magic. Don't use that such dangerous magic. I think it can't be helped that I shouted so. Anyway, victory was decided at that moment. Therefore I was going to declare the end of the battle on that battlefield. But at that time, the need to stop had already disappeared. Tens of thousands of the Empire Army's soldiers that still remains in the battlefield would be annihilated on the next moment. Quartet Spell, Fourfold Compound Magic Arc Sanctuary, Monsters Sanctuary, 4 was invoked. With Moss as the lead, 4 archdemons scattered to 4 cardinal direction of the battlefield. And then, a quartet spell was invoked. Their act of disposing strong people previously seems to be a precaution so this large-scale magic would not be disturbed. Around here, it might be that Guy 5 who had different status than Testarossa and her group that could easily invoke large-scale annihilation magic alone. But, it didn't mean that they were weak, because that guy was a bad object to be compared with. The Ark Sanctuary has no effect on the monsters as its name suggests. However, it exhibited a lethal effect to the affected humans who were not used to magic essence. Like this time, the magicians who set up magic barrier were dead, and the strengthened human that only been strengthened in fighting power only couldn't resist it. The frightening thing was a person that couldn't resist it would have their body began disintegrating and would be transformed into magic essence immediately. Only in several minutes, all remains of the survivor has became magic essence. Thus, the first encounter with the Empire army ended. Or rather, the Empire army was annihilated in the first encounter. Literally, it's an annihilation. There's no military explanation for this. It was absurd, so I thought. I only told them to let out all of their power. I didn't think the result would be like this. Towards me. How should I put it? Isn't my plan have completely no meaning now? What's with that women? Also, those intelligence officers. It's said that they are under Rimuru-sama's direct control. You could give me an explanation, right? Benimaru turned his face with smile on it. That was, well, I guess. Right? Wasn't there no plan at all? However, you see, Benimaru, you're not the only one who wants an explanation. Instead, I think I want to get an explanation. Even such excuses cannot express the feelings I had in mind. They were picked by Diablo, our new comrades. I thought it was bad if the enemy forces had someone with Demon Lord class ability, so I deployed them. They seemed to do their best a little too much. Oh well, Diablo would educate them from now on. I pushed it to Diablo and avoid it without any trouble. I mean, I didn't think that the demons acted unreasonably to that extent. Those fellows were too cool. Because they exterminated the enemy forces without any hesitation. However, rather than overdoing, they might get a bit cocky. I will educate, discipline, them later. To Diablo, who talking with smiling face, I didn't forget to say, moderately okay. To him. With this and that, the explanation about the situation ended and the damage of the first battle was confirmed. The battle ended without taking more than 2 hours since the battle began. A lot of injured seem to have appeared, but everyone have recovered now. Because everyone was given 10 high potion made in Tempest, so they seemed to be able to cure most of their wounds immediately. Also, people who I thought died at the beginning, in fact they seems to have their life saved thanks to the quick utilization of full potion owned by the commanding officer class. I can say that they carried out their role as bait splendidly under Benimaru's command. So there were few reason for Benimaru to be shaken. As a result, there was no casualties as the recovery potion was used greatly. This was an unimaginable big victory. However, it's not like there was no harm either. Gable and his Hiryu subordinates. They receive a great damage to their body because the special skill Dragon Warrior Transformation. This skill forcefully turns the user's body to become strong that rivals the Dragonoid. However, the effect didn't hold up more than 30 minutes, and can only be used once per 2 days. The reason was they would receive a excessive recoil immediately after the use and they couldn't move for 24 hours in that terrible state. Oh well, although it's good that we won by letting out all of our power, it's a skill that will self-destruct the user if used wrongly. This time, the penalty that was the recoil of Gable getting cocky, not just him alone as everyone in Hiryu's squad received the recoil too. They can feel glad it's only to that extent, so they can't help but think that. And so, the damages of the Empire's side. There was no prisoner of war. The reason why was because everyone had died. Their numbers were 240,000 people. Their souls were offered to me, so I can grasp the accurate number. This feeling might be like a guy who collects souls from his subordinates. After a while since the battle started, I felt the souls accumulated in intense rate. I evolved into a Demon Lord from the awakening of the Demon Lord seed after collecting 10,000 souls. Then what would happen in case of 240,000 souls? The answer was, no change. When I awakened as a true Demon Lord, it also meant that my evolution had reached its peak. That's right. Otherwise about this time Guy would killed and force the humanity to ruin to reap their souls. Most likely he refraining from slaughtering since his awakening because he realized instinctively that he cannot evolve anymore. However, it was possible to use it for things other than own evolution. Notice. The acquired soul had exceeded the regulated amount. Currently, it can be used for 2 individuals that linked to soul genealogy. The individuals that can be the targets are the following named monsters: Ranga, Benimaru, Shin, Gable, Gerudo, Diablo, Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera, Kumara, Zijin, Adelman. Those were individuals who has the qualification for Demon Lord Awakening. Regulated amount soul, 100.000 will be used. Would you want to perform the evolution of the subordinates? Yes/no. Raphael-san said such unthinkable things. Apparently, it's possible to awaken someone with the qualification for Demon Lord Awakening by giving them a specific amount of souls. Moreover, it came with 10 times of amount for my awakening. This is something no one ever knew about until now. Even if someone know about this, it's more cheaper to befriend one than to make one artificially 6. Guy might know about this. Therefore, he probably held the gathering of high-ranking people like Walpurgis so he could sort person who is worth to be his comrade. There might be another reason rather than just that. Perhaps I've overestimated him, though there's no chance that he didn't know about it too. Although I casually say 100.000 souls, I practically annihilated one large city. Something like that isn't an act you can do so easily. What on my mind next is the words, linked to soul genealogy. This is, probably, about connection of the souls via naming. The monsters evolved when I named them. I misused it casually, but I now understand that this is a considerably dangerous act. Because I consumed a large amount of magic essence, it leads to my own weakening. So, I stored the surplus of the magic essence 7 and use it. The reason such a thing is possible is because I had the convenient skill like the stomach of gluttonous King Beelzebub. I could understand that, if there was no such a skill I cannot use the saved up magic essence and could not perform naming to anyone so easily. Therefore, there are few people having subordinates with soul connection 8. I cannot deny the possibility that this is a privilege given only to me. And so, I said no. It has a too dangerous feeling, and because I'm troubled in choosing whom should I choose. And there's also trouble about sorting the qualified person. If it's only based on magic essence quantity, then even Sui have the qualification. Anyway, it seems better for me to leave it aside for now because I don't understand it well. However, more than 200.000 people died. It's a massacre. And yet, I don't feel anything. At the time I already became a demon lord, I don't have any intent to make excuses as I murdered 10.000 people with my own hands. I endlessly thinking such things as the person who I slain also had a family. However, are the families that sent them innocent? If you think about this so, they have the responsibility of not stopping them. When war happens, death will surely follows. They will have to bear the responsibility of not objecting the public opinion of going to war. Even if it's a constitutional state or imperialism state, that doesn't change. Ignorance is a sin. Because saying I don't know can't be an excuse. Lack of imagination is also another sin. I think it's nonsense, if you start a war without even resolution that your relatives 9 could die and would only say your complaint after it's over. Turning your weapon to the civilian is also wrong as a person and as a country, but there's no right to complaint since the invading army was annihilated. This is because we're also face it with readiness of being annihilated. Though it's coming from me who get upset only by having my subordinates got hurt. In other words, feeling and reason are different thing. Also, the war has not over yet. It appears the main force of the Empire Army, the ground corps with total number of 700.000 people are going south from the border between Dwarf Kingdom and Great Jura Forest, invading towards Tempest. There's no time to be immersed in sentiment. 1 week had passed since the war started and finally the main forces of the Empire Army has invaded my territory. I gave the order of retrieval of the unharmed tanks and the wreckages of the broken airships to Go-Buta and his group. I also make Gable who recovered to work together with Go-Buta. There's no need to return in rush, as Benimaru had issued the instructions. Certainly, it's a huge win with only this 10. Though we must never let our guard down, the second corps still here, also Diablo is in high spirit. As for the intelligence officer, Carrera is assigned to Gerudo. In addition to that, Testarossa and the others have returned to the control room too. In case there's strong individuals in the main forces of the Empire Army, I will once again deploy them. But, the other executives are in high spirits too. Shin also want to head to the battlefield. Those demons, they're too showy. I'll go and show what kind of true strength is like. So, she is going to leave while saying such regrettable words although. Guarantee you are my guard. She seemed to take back her remark in hurry after I asked her. Right now just obediently wait here, when the moment arrives I would give the sortie order. Since this place is in the deepest part of the labyrinth, it'll take some time till the enemy army attack this place. Oh well, our remaining forces are few in comparison with the Empire army of 700,000 people. However, ours might be equal at the quality and not just the executives, even the soldiers at the tip 11 are highly motivated. My order seems still effective and everyone is in high morale to let out their power. What should I do? That's the problem. Although it was ignored, the play with the warning had been done 12 and I also had already finished the declaration of the war. Even if I suddenly make a surprise attack, they couldn't criticize and call it cowardice. However, the effect of a surprise attack with few numbers is small. Is it the turn of nuclear strike magic? No. Should I issue a warning for fair and square battle for the time being? Everyone was filled with motivation, very enthusiastically offering even more souls to me. They probably didn't know what possible to do by gathering souls. I wondered why they'd go that far. The demons seems to make the remains of feelings imprinted within the soul as their favorite food though. I don't particularly want such a thing. However, it's 700,000 people huh? Don't let me awaken 7 people. I get scared of thinking about that. First of all, victims must not come from our side, though if it could bring us victory in the war then that's fine. The best action is to lure them into the labyrinth. If it's inside the labyrinth, I can make our casualties to be 0. Or rather because the monsters inside the labyrinth can be converted into war potentials for us and our forces would increases instantly. If it's only their number, they would able to oppose the 700,000 people aside from the quality 13. In Benimaru's strategy, the second corps would be deployed as the front line of Tempest and strengthen the defense completely. Meanwhile, we would confirm the enemy's intelligence and work out a strategy to estimate the existence of strong individuals. Actually, the progress of a war in modern warfare were decided by the power of numbers, although in this world power of one strong individual could overturn the situation of a war as it was proven in the first battle 14. I would say that it's a theory that prioritizing in estimating the individual who likely become a threat. Certainly, it would be useless even if I sent a general nuclear strike because of the defense of magic barrier. However, I think it cannot defend against death streak. Should I make the demons, the intelligence officers to do a suicide attack and annihilated the enemy army? I thought that for a moment. But, the damage to the forest would be tremendous if I do that. Above all, I would say that I could lose my precious and strongest war potentials easily if by any chance the enemy could defend against the attack. It's common to make the defense of a big army completely sure. An individual who could use holy barrier seems to go to the front. Among the first strong individuals that defeated by Moss's group, there seemed to be a person who could erect such barrier. There's no meaning as it can't be used since they lost the means to defend against the large-scale annihilation magic. Benimaru's way was more skilled than me who was an amateur in tactics. Since I entrust everything to him, I should pose dignified. In the end, it progressed without any alarming event. Although the Empire Army's main forces went south after traveling near the former area of Pharma's kingdom, their aim was naturally, Tempest, after all. In the unlikely event that they began to march to the former territory of Pharma's kingdom, I planned to immediately attack them from the rear, but such worry was just a needless anxiety. Currently, Pharma's is where Yuma would raise and establish a new kingdom. We are secretly supporting them, but they still don't have the strength for a war. Even so, we have surveillance cooperation with Phalmus. Because I thought that if possible I didn't want any harm come to them, I felt relieved by this result. By the way, there was even an proposal from the Dwarf King, asking if it was necessary to send a reinforcement, but I answered, there's no problem. Leaving them alone and let them to pass through just like that. It will be alright if they arrived at us, everyone's opinions had settled on this conclusion. The Dwarf King said, then a cooperation in surveillance, and he successively passed information to my side. Well, actually there's no need for that, but we accept it as a form of goodwill. As I can observe any action one by one with surveillance magic, it's really convenient for times like this. Just in case, because Sui's subordinates were doing the surveillance in real time, there's no worry that the displayed images were incorrect due to illusion and the like. While monitoring the situation with such feeling, we're standing by in preparation towards the Second War. Because it's the same road like the invasion route used by the Holy Knights, along the way exists the Labyrinth's entrance. If the Empire ignores the Labyrinth and went full army to Tempest, the volunteers gathered inside the Labyrinth could attack them from the rear. In this case, we must prepare for a huge casualties, but it could make up for the disadvantage because pincer attack is possible. We will decide what to do when they arrive to here. If possible, I want half of them be directed to the dungeon. It was uncertain whether it would went according to my wish or not, but in the end it developed just as I wished for. The forces of about 200,000 people passes the Labyrinth and went toward Tempest City. The enemy's main forces of 500,000 people were encamped in the dungeon's vicinity. Probably, they might invading for capturing the dungeon while confirming the status of Tempest City's invasion sequentially. They seemed to be surprised that the city surrounding the Labyrinth disappears, but they seemed to performing the capture of the dungeon without hesitating. It was greed. Being focused only on one of it would be inconvenient for us. Rather, there's no problem if they bite at the bait that's the dungeon, but we couldn't avoid a hard fight if the entire army was allotted for capturing our capital. Rather calling it as a skirmish, even allowing them to directly invade the decoy troops and leaking out some information, will make them meaninglessly lose their war potentials. If there's no need to split, dispersing the war potentials is a stupid move. It's a thought of an amateur, though I think there's no other choice but to crush as both of it. We won. To my muttering. Ah. It's our victory. So Benimaru answers in good mood. Substantially, victory was decided by the strategy. Afterward, as long as we're not defeated by brute strength, our victory is certain. It was great that the fools went to the Labyrinth. That's right. But, it's thanks to the bait that Rimuru-sama scattered. It's great that most of them bite it. I guess so. I don't know what Yuuki's goal is, so the best thing I could do was scattering the bait to cause an internal discord. Anyway, I only thought about it with aim for causing a disturbance inside the Empire. Oh well, if you stimulate a person's desire, it will be impossible for them to ignore the dungeon. The worst case is the decisive battle will be inside the Labyrinth after the capital becomes ashes. If it's not a big deal, we can win with the capital being safe too. Depending on the situation, I would also head out. When Benimaru says so. There's might be no need for that. Rimuru-sama, before Benimaru goes out, is it okay for me to head out too? Shin appeared 15. Oh well, it's important for her being my personal bodyguard, but the control room is the safest place. She may come back with transfer immediately, as in my side there are Testa and all who refraining themselves as they were punished because they went rampaging is the reason. Not to mention, Feldera also watching the battle together with me. I thought there's no danger for guard to be stationed here. I think there's no problem. It might be hard for Gerudo's corps only, your corps might also need an actual combat experience. Go as I permit it, however, don't overdo it. Understood, thank you very much. Shin left the control room with face full of smile, face that says, how's that Benimaru? Diablo also bowed to me, he went with a whole face smile. It will be difficult to stop Diablo. After all, he's the most motivated here. Benimaru shrugged his shoulders, he seemed to given up on going out. And so, he joined me and the remaining spectators. Because it's a ridiculous thing for the Supreme Commander to go out, of course I said that's natural. Thus, the decisive battle with 700,000 people of the Empire Army's main forces has begun. 1. Rimuru. You breaking the fourth wall. 2. Ryu imagine. I really didn't know what should I use here. XD. 3. Energy equals magic power. 4. Shijuya Fukugumaha, Karudito Superu, Mama no Tachi no Siki, Aku Sankakuria. 5 Diablo, it's obviously Diablo. 6 Better befriend one than making one. 7 Like MP Regan. 8 As other people didn't have the same skill as Rimuru. 9 As in someone you know, not just families. 10 He got new toys, tank and airship. 11 The lowest rank. 12 The one Testarossa do before. 13 Quality equals individual power. 14 Which they just won before. 15 Appeared as like she butting in the conversation. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 156, The Mysterious Lion Mask. 156. Meeting in the Labyrinth. Armored Corps Chief Calgurio advanced his troops with the utmost confidence. After consulting with his advisors, a magic tank squad was to advance as vanguard and bait. Even if Storm Dragon Feldera appeared, the aerial fighter Legion's 100 airship fleet would counter it flawlessly. That force was thought to be more than enough to conquer all of the west side. After all, the 100 airships assured complete dominance by each carrying elite mages to the maximum capacity. In addition, even though the 300 airships carrying the Beast Corps did not have many offensive mages, they specialized in logistics support, so it was not a problem. With both teams simultaneously attacking, Calgurio's armored corps would achieve great success and honor. Thus, Calgurio laughed heartily at the prospect of his power further increasing in the empire. As the enemy fell for the bait, the main force was to boldly make its appearance and commence the attack. Even though they were at the border of the military nation of Dworgen, their movements would not be detected. It was also not guaranteed that this nation would contact its allied nation, the monster country Tempest. In any case, it was already too late. Even if they were to send troops now, they were too far, and Timewise would not be able to make it. Even if they were too busy with their experiments and regretted it, it would be too late. I don't know. Original. Plus, even if they were guarding all routes, they would be spread far too thin to actually be a hindrance. Everything was going according to plan, victory was in Calgurio's hands. At that point, on the off chance that the military nation Dworgen tried to help the monster's country Tempest, their neutrality is nulled. If that happened, he would then overwhelm and destroy both nations. Then, a well-awaited report came. The vanguard squad sent as bait reported that the monsters of Tempest had come out. They number not much more than 10,000. The report verified that it was one of the enemy's main forces. I won. Gloated Calgurio. The enemy easily fell for the trap. They seemed to be much less intelligent than he thought, and, failing to guess his invasion route, split up their forces. Reconnaissance had determined that monster country Tempest had prepared 120,000 to 150,000 troops. Among them, those that could be considered military units should not even be 50,000. Therefore, as the enemy here number around 10,000, their plan was likely to have all the routes covered and stall for time. With such a pathetic force, forget stalling for time, even the vanguard can finish them off. As expected of savages, monsters that do not comprehend the importance of information gathering, this was their utmost level of planning. If Feldera doesn't appear, they are fated for defeat. Before the frontal forces arrived to trample all over them, Calgurio would quickly fell the enemy base. Calgurio ordered to halt covert operations and advanced his army towards the capital of monster country Tempest. Although there is the matter of the dwarves possibly taking military action, that was determined to no longer be a problem. In fact, Calgurio was immersed in imagining the faces of the panicked enemy as they finally noticed his army. In the end, with no sign of reinforcement from Dworgen, they would head for the Labyrinth in the monster country Tempest's satellite city. They beasts most likely gave up upon seeing the Empire's might, thought Calgurio. That was obvious, after all, the Empire boasts a great army of 700,000. In addition, despite being fully armed, they marched at an unprecedented speed. This modern army was at a strength beyond the imagination of the dwarves with their backdated technology in arms, magic and science. With their fusion, based on a new cutting-edge combat system, the strongest corps was born. That was the armored corps led by Calgurio. In monster country Tempest, at the location of the Labyrinth city was nothing save for a single structure. That, in fact, was the entrance to the labyrinth, and other than a staircase to its depths, there was nothing more in the vicinity. This scene was different from what was initially reported, and apparently, the merchants and adventurers on the west side all ran away with the Empire approaching. If that was the case, rather than let the enemy use them, it was likely that the beasts erased everything. They probably feared the possibility of looting. This in reality was clearly a strategy to hurt the enemy by preventing the enemy from procuring food. Clever. Calgurio spits out. For soldiers who received enhancement surgery from otherworld science and magic, it is possible to perform optimally without food or water for a week. Food packs made with energy balance in mind were created to provide each unit with energy for a single day. Each unit, carrying a small storage pack, was provided 10 such food packs. Considering such measures taken prior to arriving, there was no loss in performance in the armored corps even if they could not manage to collect food from this town. Food intake was optimized by making sufficiently small and easy-to-use food packs. The problem of potable water was easily solved by drawing water through magic. To hope that the supply chain was a weakness of this great army was simply too naive. Ha! Demon Lord or not, in the end, to think they're only capable of such shallow thought. Ridiculing the plans of his foe, Calgurio was certain of victory on this battle. First he would put a foothold in the satellite city of Monster Country Tempest. Building a base there, he would subjugate the west side with a smooth flow. If he didn't hurry, the Beast Corps advancing from the north would diminish the scale of his achievement. If Feldera were to come out, there would be the need to stop it, but the Storm Dragon had made no sign of showing up. Speaking of which, while Calgurio was resting in a tent of the provisional headquarters, he was surprised to not receive any reports from the vanguard. After the first time, there was no more communication. According to the communications mage, the magic concentration in the Great Forest of Jura was apparently interfering with the magic communication waves. As this is a demon lord's domain, that much was to be expected. The remaining enemy troops may have even come back and fighting had already broke out. Even so, judging from the first troops we encountered, reinforcements should also be fodder. There was no need to worry about the vanguard, so Calgurio would stop thinking about it. Just in case, he ordered in reconnaissance to look into the matter and dropped the thought. The issue now, whether to advance to the capital or the labyrinth. Normally, felling the capital would be given priority. It was close by, so first was defeat the Demon Lord and then, beat the labyrinth. Even if Feldera showed up, it's a simple matter of calling the airship fleet. Though communication was impossible for now, they could easily signal them using magic bullets. Unlike on land, airspeed was so high that the waiting time would be negligible, so there was no need to fear the purportedly weakened Storm Dragon. The mage reported that, the Monster Country Tempest's capital had a defense barrier set up around it. Even using the magic canceller device to break the barrier, it would soon regenerate, so there was no point. It seemed to be pretty strong. Rather than breaking in, it would seem to be easier to destroy it from the inside. Even though the magic canceller device was excellent against offensive magic, it's rather weak at beating barriers. That being the case, now would be the time that the remodeled armored corps takes center stage. Reconnaissance reported that the monster troops were stationed right in front of the capital. They were the main force of 20,000 high orcs. No problem at all. Calgurio and his advisors all never doubted their certain victory. After all, they had a great army of 700,000. Victory usually being assured with 3 times the force, with more than 30 times more troops, they had no doubt at all. Can't we just attack both places at the same time? The advisors who were nobles of the empire expressed the opinion. There were no objections. There was no need to pointlessly disagree and create anxiety, as there was no rush. Rather, Calgurio was equally interested in the treasures that lay within the labyrinth. In the end, sending off 200,000 troops to capture the capital, he, with 350,000 were to head into the labyrinth. Anyway, it was a simple strategy of overwhelming the labyrinth with immense numbers. There being no objections, there's really no doubt that what they were most interested in was the short-term profit, rather than capturing the capital but. Being assured of victory, Calgurio and co put their plan to action without realizing their greed. Thus, in Monster Country Tempest, 200,000 troops would advance towards the capital, and 350,000 would focus on capturing the labyrinth. And then, these foolish souls would descend the stairs they could never again climb back up. With the absolute conviction of filling their pockets to the brim with the treasures of the labyrinth, they advanced. The labyrinth grants passage to all. But, with safe mode now turned off, there would be a never-before-seen hell befallen on its visitors. One of the innermost rooms of the labyrinth. A place where a secret meeting room could be found, that even Rimuru didn't know of. For the first time, because of the master of the labyrinth, Ramorous emergency remodeling, the most powerful denizens of the labyrinth were gathered. The reason, a meeting concerning the annihilation of the fools who dared to invade the labyrinth. But in reality, the purpose of the meeting was of a very different nature. The gathered, they were those who were called the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth. Ramorous Aide, Labyrinth Janitor, Dungeon Master Beretta. 4 groups of the Lords. Floor 90 Guardian, 9 Head Kumara. Floor 80 Guardian, Insect Emperor Kaiser Zijin. Floor 79 Floor Boss, Insect Queen Apito. Floor 70 Guardian, Ghost King, Immortal King Adalman. Floor 70 Vanguard, Ghost Knight, Death Paladin Albert. And finally, Floor 50 Alternating Guardians, Gozairl and Mazurl. Both of them were also participating for some reason. Realizing the strength of their fellow lords, it felt as if they were shrinking. They, who had thought they could win against anyone, now faced a reality as they recognized the clear difference in level. As for Beretta, though he was only assigned to chores said, later, Rune Master Gadra would become one of the 10 Lords, but anyway, those sitting down currently were the 10 Lords of the Labyrinth. Knowing that irresponsible Ramorous, that name would not stick. Normally, all of them wouldn't gather here, but since it was an emergency-like situation, Ramorous invoked her authority, and as a result, for the first time, the whole team had gathered. Well, Feldera was sitting leisurely on the middle seat but, the other lords were gathered for a sole reason. That who amongst them, other than Beretta and the Storm Dragon, was the strongest. This rivalry burned stronger when Demon Lord Rimuru personally praised Alderman and granted him a higher rank. Every one of them wanted to prove to be the most useful. With the lower floors not receiving much action, those lords were most affected. So there was a backlash. Particularly the 2 females, Apito and Kumara, had a dangerous relationship. Zijin was calm, and Alderman was burning with ambition. However, they did not truly hate each other despite their poisonous auras. In the end, even though they were all aiming to prove themselves, they wouldn't go around sabotaging each other's efforts. These people gathered for the first time, but it was surprisingly quiet. Facing the Empire's invasion of the Labyrinth, their hostility towards the enemy took precedence over their rivalry. Lords, you've done well to gather. Today, this labyrinth faces its greatest crisis since its grand opening. With that, let me hear your thoughts. The words my Ramorous signaled the start of the meeting. Era? Isn't that obvious? Tien, Kumara ends her line in Orensu. A massacre of course. Cutting off Kumara, Apito continues. This time, can you not send the action to my floor? These days, Apito has been happy fooling around with the Holy Knight right. Say what? That weakling, any more and I'll die of boredom. As they glare at each other, a different kind of tension fills the room. Kahahahaha. Let's stop the bickering. And be at ease. This time, everyone shall get a chance to fight. First, I figured anyone who can pass the 60th floor would be a worthy enemy but it was annoying so I stopped. Yeah that's right. Just like Shishao, Tien, Master, said, waiting for them to cross all the 50 floors is seriously a pain. Normally it'd be okay, but with their numbers, it looks like it's gonna take a while. So tell you what, well send in 10,000 of them to each floor from the beginning. If you're lucky, someone strong might come along and you know. With those words from Feldera and Ramorous, the others shone a glint in their eyes. So you mean, everyone gets the chance? Asks Alderman, to which? Exactly. Ramorous made an exaggerated nod, and continued with the explanation. Each of the lords would receive 10,000 troops at a time. Floors 61 to 70, 71 to 80, and 81 to 90 would get filled 100,000 each. And the remaining would be sent to floors 51 to 60. There were around 350,000 troops heading into the labyrinth, so they would be distributed in this fashion. And then, Goza Earl and Mazurl are on standby on floor 30 to eat up the ones that can run back up that far K. And even if you up and die, you can always revive, so, work hard and Ramiris concluded. With that, the lords got super motivated. So, does Rimuru-sama know about this? Zijin broke his silence and spoke. Pito was surprised. Insect Emperor Kaiser Zijin was a silent man, he never really had much to talk about. He seemed to be receiving combat training from Feldera for a while, and recently it looked like they were close to being evenly matched. Feldera was admittedly very strong, and other than his loyalty to Demon Lord Rimuru, he was a man who only cared for strength. We're keeping it a secret. So, let's surprise everyone Ramiris said with an innocent smile. But in reality, together with Feldera the two were hatching a devious plot, mainly to surprise Rimuru. It was always like that, and the ones who were involved suffered. Oi, Rimuru-sama won't get angry later, right? Albert asked, worried. No problemo. Feldera and Ramiris assured him. Seeing Beretta was averting his gaze, Albert gave up. Well, it probably wasn't too big a deal, he thought. I just need to beat the enemy. In theory, a battered enemy is easier to beat, but we can revive. There was no need for wait for them to tire out battling monsters on weaker floors. Very well, I concur that we simply need to win. Zijin said with a nod, and the matter was settled. Ramiris and Feldera looked at each other with an evil smile, and the others pretended not to notice. After all, it was the first real battle with the full force. Whatever the case, in truth, none of them were going to let go of this chance. To unleash the true horror of the labyrinth onto its invaders, the 10 lords returned to their respective floors. And so, these denizens of hell wait patiently for their soon-to-arrive guests. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 157, Battle of the Dungeon. Big thanks to Mysterious Lion Mask-san for his draft. 157. Battle of the Dungeon. Gradually, the soldiers and the generals of the Empire's army began entering the dungeon. 3M. Each one had a rope in hand, connecting them at 3-meter intervals. There was a combat team stationed elsewhere, and they must be able to detach the rope swiftly. Since they have already made various preparations beforehand for conquering the dungeon, their actions were quick and swift. Through interrogating Shinji and Co., Calgurio had a fair grasp of the dungeon's structure, and prepared measures to combat getting lost in the dungeon. While spirit mages confirmed the course ahead, a special team would disable any traps. The combat team would work on subjugating monsters, and the analysis team would collect dismantled monsters and monster cores. TN note, demonic crystal stone is the literal translation. Money and goods collected from the treasure boxes of various rooms would transferred to the back, and be prepared to be transported to the command headquarters. With the soldiers connected, they could act accordingly to the situation. Calgurio's plan in Itlali went well. However, things started happening within. Contacts with soldiers who entered first were cut off, causing minor disturbances. There were also reports of rather than a labyrinth, it was a wide space internally. Previously connected to staircases, an order to continue the search was issued under the assumption that it was a distorted structure. The spirit mages reported that due to the spirits being in disarray the path would sometimes be uncertain. Thanks to Shinji's report, he knew that the dungeon would change its internal structure on a weekly basis. This had caused Calgurio's decisions to go awry. How unlucky. We've just clashed with the maze's remodeling period. Thinking about this, he gave his subordinates their orders. Even so, to panic so much over a changing maze, Calgurio was very dissatisfied with the Empire Army's disgraceful display. Among the items continuously delivered from the dungeon, each and every one of them were first-rate equipment made with demon steel. The monster cores collected were also of high quality, with high energy conversion rate. Before all the reaped profits, the confusion was a minor problem no matter the scale. 3-5. After a whole day, the majority of the 350,000 troops had successfully entered the dungeon. The ground troops were on standby at the dungeon's entrance, communicating with the internal group via ropes and making preparations. In addition, their work on pitching up a tent in order to place the transported riches and goods. That's when the actual abnormality began. Losing contact with the soldiers within, the rope was suddenly cut. 3-5. This happened exactly when all 350,000 soldiers entered the dungeon. They tried getting in contact, via telepathy and clairvoyance communication, but there was no reply. Things were going well up until then. The transportation of goods from within was also interrupted then. The means of confirming the internal conditions of the dungeon were all lost. The entrance of the dungeon remained opened as it first was. And yet, near the entrance within, the presence of soldiers were all gone. With an indescribable foreboding silence, the Empire's troops felt an ominous premonition. Calgurio was no exception, as it hindered his decision-making. However, the situation is changing too rapidly. He had no time to spare worrying about those who went conquering the dungeon. Calgurio was left with little time. 6170. Dungeon Stratum 6170. Charging through a horde of undead-type monsters, the soldiers of the Empire Army cybernetic troops invaded deeper into the dungeon. Having a delayed head start, the combat group vigilantly guarded each other as they took cautious action. To begin with, the soldiers were all individually fairly strong. B. In adventurer terms, they were all at the very least above B rank. Their bare first-class prowess. If it's them, they would need not panic as they dealt with monsters. Or so it should have been. After the first day in the dungeon, things took a drastic sharp turn. Losing all contact with the surface troops, they were completely isolated. No, this isn't right. They've descended 9 layers. And then, there was a large space, with absolutely nothing there. They've continued to descend, but once 10,000 had passed, the stairway had disappeared. In its place, a giant door. Without hesitation, they've opened the door. And welcome to mine kingdom of death, dystopia. Now, let us immerse in fun-filled times. We're holding back those behind thee, so let's begin. Skeleton, one word describes it all. With polished, pure white bones, it spoke to the Empire's troops in fluent human tongue. Right after, a demoniac roar bellowed as if the very space itself was crushed under its pressure. And with it a spectral dragon, Death Dragon. The strongest of the undead types and the vilest of dragons, it assaulted the Empire's soldiers. The large door was swung completely open, and a continuous steam of Death Knight cavalry led by a Death Knight charged. The spectral dragon, Death Dragon, released corrosive zombie breath from above, while the Death Knights began their assault from the ground. The Empire army's numbers diminished in an flash, and the first 10,000 were wiped out in less than an hour. After all, even if the Death Knights only number about 1,000, they would rise up no matter how many times they were felled. This situation broke the minds of the Empire's soldiers, driving them to the edge of despair. Their enemy knew neither fatigue nor death. Then, there's the overwhelming threat from the skies known as the Spectral Dragon, Death Dragon. The second wave followed, and the first wave also met a similar fate. More and more Empire soldiers descended below, unbeknownst to them as they ceaselessly entered the jaws of death. 7180. Dungeon Stratum 7180. The Empire's forces traversing this level were forced in a battle against an endless swarm of insects. An endless onslaught, the bugs attacked fiercely. With no fear of death, they fought in their swarms without rest. However, the amount of monster cores collected were high in both quantity and quality, bringing a smile to the soldiers' faces. They were simply endless, their individual fighting powers were nothing much. If this were a normal adventurer party, they would be unable to rest from the endless onslaught, fatigue hampering their performance and ultimately be brought down. However, even if there were a large quantity of bugs, the Empire's numbers are nothing to scoff at. Switching out those who are tired, the Empire can still advance as one. Even though the contents of the dungeon didn't match the reports, this isn't content a single should care about, and shouldn't mind the reports of their superiors. There wasn't much time to rest, and the situation is still manageable, but it's the amount of luxurious goods they've obtained that brightened their mood. For example, an earlier room had a treasure chest, and a soldier discovered a dagger within. Glided with gold and silver, it was an expensive-looking dagger. It had superior capabilities, and was made of demon steel. A demon steel core alone would make something very expensive, yet the whole dagger was made of pure demon steel. The soldier spoke of it with a grin. Naturally there would be a body search afterwards, however a dagger of this degree could easily be sneaked through. The surrounding soldiers were envious, and hoped themselves that it would be them next. If there weren't perks like these, it would be unbearable to fight insects in such a place. The number of demon cores collected had also piled up considerably. High-purity demon cores were difficult to come by, yet they could be easily procured here by defeating monsters. This alone warranted quite the bonus. There was a feeling of loathing when the first group screamed something about specters, but they felt like they hit the jackpot with this insect-filled stratum. And so everyone's delusion of getting lucky continuously bloated. While some started acting carelessly, there were also those who still remained alert. Soon, those individuals gathered secretly and formed a group, consisting of the Intelligence Bureau and the Reconnaissance Bureau. They had originally been allocated to separate groups, but soon they gathered. The reason is simple. They felt danger. This dungeon is dangerous, the conquering plan may have already failed. One spoke without opening their mouth. By holding hands and communicating via telepathy, this was a unique method of communicating within the Intelligence Bureau. Ah, you noticed? The powerful individual earlier, I think they're known as the floor boss. Ah, the one in front of the stairs, right? Its strength is in a different league, it even took down several high-ranking soldiers. Ah, it's that guy. But, the report that followed was unbelievable. It revived, in 3 hours. WTF. TN note, got creative. Why not? And so, they've exchanged information. The more they listened, the more chaotic this dungeon seems. The current situation was evidently different from prior reports. When the situation doesn't match prior intelligence, forceful actions would be evaded while a reinvestigation is commenced. And yet, the higher-ups forced the search to continue. It's evident this was the result of prioritizing their desires, and so the Intelligence Bureau members wondered should they comply with the mission and fail with it. As they were discussed should they retreat from the dungeon first. The head of the soldiers next to them had fell to the ground. They're too late. They weren't able to decide, as the time for talk was over. Foo. The bait has arrived. Good work all of you. You may now die. They've heard a voice. Resounding from the floor, a beautiful voice. That was the beautiful voice of this level's guardian floor boss, the insect queen Apito. Transforming into mental waves, it undulated throughout the entire floor. And there it began, a one-sided slaughter. Any amount of confidence in their fighting strength was now all meaningless. Even if they were ranks, if they were below a certain threshold they were no different from amateurs. Those who couldn't react aren't even given the chance to fight back. The army wasps led by Apito. 30 cm. They real identities, slaughters with 3D maneuvers capabilities at hypersonic speed reaching sizes of only 30 centimeters. Small invisible wings emit terrifying high-frequency blades. Approaching you at speeds surpassing sound, they were silent killers. These slaughters numbering over 1,000 could seek out humans, game, with their heightened senses. Excellent dynamic vision is meaningless, if one doesn't possess the unique skills, accelerated thinking, and hyper-reaction speed, they couldn't even possibly react to them. An opponent beyond the perceivable range of humans, even if it's only one, would be classified as an A-rank disaster class. On a side note, when such a monster is discovered in the Western countries an emergency alarm would be triggered. A subjugation team consisting of elite holy knights would be formed, and a large-scale holy barrier would be erected to weaken the monster followed by a large area sweep. Still they must enter with the conviction to make sacrifices, for such was the danger of an A-rank disaster class, it was such a monster. And thus begins the slaughter fest. 10. And the time it took to slaughter the Empire soldiers was a measly less than 10 minutes. 8190. Dungeon Stratum 8190. They could say it now. The first two floors were bonus stages. Michael and Raymond are waging a desperate two-man battle. Their comrades aren't here anymore. They were all slaughtered. The demon before them, with beautiful white hair, was an ape with wisdom. However, they weren't the only ones suffering. 8-1. What they didn't know, was that beyond the 81st stratum, those who reached the lower floors are all engaged in a miserable battle. 8-1. The 81st stratum was simply a taster level. Where powerful beasts roam, it's the paradise of demonic beasts. However, even though there would be some head and shoulders above their group, they're basically wisdom-lacking monsters. For veteran soldiers with a load of experience in their belts, they were opponents that could be taken down with ease. B+3-5. Monsters beyond what they expected on average, B-end monsters appearing in groups of 3 to 5 were a tough matchup, but they managed to clear the first floor with no casualties. At this rate it would probably take some times, but given a few days conquering the dungeon could still be possible. Until that guy appeared. With the capability of speaking human speech, it was an ape with wisdom. Making use of Yujitsu, it had annihilated the army. TN note, think witchcraft, but for yokais instead. A pure white yokai ape, a byakuin. Using a unique taijutsu utilizing the staff, it was a phantasmagorical way of killing from the air. Manipulating wind and sound, beckoning forth storms. Then, slashing vacuum blades at all directions, it was an extremely dangerous demonic beast. 1. Their encounter with this demonic beast has lasted over an hour, and their friends fell one by one. Michael and Raymond, as other worlders and as soldiers, were reasonably relied on. With their pride as strong individuals, they desperately fought against the demonic beast. The sniping squads attacked were blocked by the storms, the mage squad's debuffs, status effects, and even magic itself, were all interfered via Yujitsu. A barrier of wind threw a monkey wrench into the plans of all direct magic attacks, for their strength was insufficient. Even the elites amongst the enhanced cybernetic troops of the Empire are toyed like children with the byakuin as their foe. It was an unbelievable sight at first. But in reality, it soon developed into a despair-filled battle, and only Raymond and Michel were left in the end. Similar beasts also lurk in the other stratums. The soldiers who lead the invasion began to painfully collapse. When they were asked, there were also black spots on their skin, and high fever. Small black mice scurried around their feet. Their existence were so insignificant the soldiers simply ignored them. However, it was those very mice that were the perpetrators of the current situation. Black Rats Caucus. They are the floor boss of this level. Spreading black death everywhere, the rulers of plagues. If someone with abilities like Shinji's were here, they would probably be able to neutralize this floor. Unfortunately there isn't. Magic treatment had little effect on the disease, and holy magic that could completely cure this was scarce. Treatment of injuries and treatments of disease are based off completely different fundamentals. In this fashion, death had spread throughout this floor. Similarly in other floors. The lightning-clad trigger the Thunder Tiger Reiko, blocking all who attempt to pass the stratum. The rabbit manipulating gravity lunar rabbit ghetto scattering tyranny here and there. The snake with wings winged serpent Yoda lowering the oxygen concentration in the air to zero by manipulating air contents. The sheep that reaps the conscience of soldiers drowsy sheep mink lulling all to sleep with hallucinogenic hypnosis. The bird with a cowl of flames firebird Enka killing all soldiers with high temperature. The dog that uses the mirror that reflects all mirror Houndigami sending any and every technique back to sender. At each stratum, was a vicious demonic beast rampaging about. What's worse is the fact that even after being defeated they would revive. This truth easily crippled the hearts of soldiers. They could do naught but fight endlessly. Mouse tiger rabbit snake sheep ape bird hound are all beast-type demonic beasts. They are the 9-head Kumara's squad, pet, of 8. Their forms are those of Kumara's and they each manifested an aspect of her abilities. Kumara has the bewitching form and beauty of a courtesan, however in reality she is the elusive empress of the demonic beasts whom beckons death. Before Kumara, the fools have finally arrived. Yet, they are only food for Kumara. It would seem death is being mass-produced within the labyrinth. And so, 3-5. When the dungeon conquering of the Empire's 350,000 soldiers had ended, a day has passed. The number of survivors is 0. Underscore 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 un. Just a few minor notes to Lion-san. There were a few content errors here and there, but nothing overly serious. You should see me when I first started XD, those were the days. If this is your first time translating, it's a pretty good job. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 158, The Absolute Strongest of the Dungeon. Big thanks to Lion-san and co for the draft, and a big thanks to y'all who waited patiently. Special notice. Some of you folks are probably aware due to my grumbling rant, but my first year of university is right around the corner, so things are starting to get rather hectic in my life. At the moment I'm not sure what to expect, and my schedule would definitely turn pear-shaped. Currently my goal is to release at least one chapter a week, 2-3's the dream, and if something happens and I can't release in time, I'll give y'all a shout so you guys know I'm still alive. As for those who have been working hard to translate ahead, I sincerely thank you for your efforts, and for keeping this bear from turning into Bear Grylls. If you would like me to put your translations up on the chapter list, just mail this email, infernodragonh@gmail.com, it's from my chunny years, the link, alongside with the translator and editor's name, and I'll put it up. If you're confident in your Japanese abilities and would like me to proofread/edit/post your work up instead of using it as reference only, do tell me that too in the email. Otherwise I'll just put it up in the same format as I have with Lion-san's work. Seriously thought I'm going to need a load of salmon and honey tea trying to catch up with you guys. Oh yes, one last thing, for those who are planning to help translate not only as reference, do tell me what additional chapters you would plan to translate, so we wouldn't overlap. So yeah, enjoy. Underscore 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 un. 158. The absolute strongest of the dungeon. A pitch-black exoskeleton, with visible golden joints. A rainbow-colored sword-like horn protruded from the center, and to its left and right are two antennae as pitch black as the exoskeleton. The appearance of the exoskeleton was remodeled to suit the taste of his Lord Rimuru. Demon steel has also been assimilated into it. The unique steel material, containing a large amount of his Lord Rimuru's magic essence, had blended in perfectly with the exoskeleton. This living biosteel, named adamantine, had a hardness surpassing diamonds, with the flexibility of living flesh, making it an unmatched material. Made with the highest tier of material, it has become a natural suit of armor. However, his strength isn't determined by his exoskeleton alone. The nature of his strength comes from his thorough lust for battle that rose from his very instincts. And now, before him his new prey. All in accordance to his plan. He is the absolute strongest in the dungeon. The strongest guardian, Insect Kaiser Zeigen. Raymond and Michelle are sitting down in the middle of a flight of stairs, breathing wildly and taking a break. With sheer luck they had somehow defeated that dangerous monster, the white ape. However, according to reports and from experience, the fact that fallen monsters would resurrect was confirmed to be true. Thus, they had quickly fled to the stairs before it resurrects. It isn't exactly confirmed, however there have been no reports of monsters appearing at the staircases. Perhaps it was just their small glimmer of expectation, but this may be the only safe zone they could take a rest in. Oi, what now? Should we proceed ahead? Don't be ridiculous. We've only gone down one flight of stairs, you know. And what appeared was that monster ape, Byakugan. If there's a horde of those monsters ahead, we don't have any means against them, right? Yeah, that's true. But you, how do you plan to escape? We can't proceed, nor can we escape. Isn't this dungeon impossible to clear? That's where the problem was. They've descended the stairs from the entrance and reached this stratum, however if they try going up again they'll just end up on another stratum. They can't seem to surface. At first they were able to enter and exist without a problem, but soon they ended up on different stratums. 8.1. There's a bit of info that Raymond and Michelle couldn't possibly know, but their first entry point was on the 81st stratum. 8.7. And from there they had descended down to the 87th stratum. 8.1.8.1.8.0. However, if they tried to get back up they wouldn't return to the 81st stratum, and if they were on the 81st stratum they should have returned to the 80th stratum. Ramirez had previously distorted the dungeon, but now that she had cancelled it the only way to get out was via the original way. TN note, aka, 1. Die with a revival bracelet on hand. 2. Register at one of the teleporters. 3. Give up. 7.9. There was originally a setting where you wouldn't directly enter the boss room and would instead enter the 79th stratum first. That has been turned off at the moment. In other words, if they want to exit they're going to have to ascend through every stratum above them. Which is probably borderline possible. However, as for the oblivious them, should they ascend or should they descend, they couldn't discern the correct answer in this situation. 8. In addition, they could somehow manage their water supply, but they only have 8 days worth of food left. 3. And should they wander about in this dungeon, if they choose to devour the flesh and blood of monsters, then they would have about 3 weeks' time before they cripple. Only 1 day had passed since the invasion, and the situation had turned from chaotic to desperate. Hey, about the devices the development team distributed, can we really trust these? Asked Michelle towards Raymond, pointing at the bracelet. The development team claimed they were prototypes that could possibly have a resurrection effect. Replicas based off the ones taken from the secret reconnaissance team of Shinji & Co. The folks at the development team had confidence in their abilities, but Michelle didn't trust them. It's a little too early to confirm the facts, thought. They couldn't provide it to all the soldiers in time, so it was only distributed to the elites in terms of fighting prowess. It hasn't been properly confirmed. If someone died first then they could confirm it, but this isn't some funny joke that they could laugh off. Nor is their current situation. No way I'm gonna trust this thing. If I died and didn't revive there's nothing I can do about it. Raymond replied with a realistic answer, and Michelle shrugged shoulders in agreement. Although, at first glance they could simply keep the bracelet on for mental relief. However, according to Shinji's report, the effects of the bracelet of revival will revive someone on the streets near the dungeon entrance. However, those were something made in accordance to the dungeon master, Ramirez's will. These replicas might even end up raising her ire. Michelle removed the bracelet and stomped on it. It made a dry sound, and the bracelet crumbled into dust. Making a forced smile, Raymond followed suit. And now, they rely solely on their own ability. They stood up, making wry smiles at each other. Shall we? Ah. Since it's like this, why don't we try seeing how far down can we go? Since we've gotten stronger, in any case, why don't we go down? Indeed, that's the spirit. They've decided and determined the path they'd proceed. With beaming smiles, they descended with unwavering steps. With no way of knowing what lies ahead. Their will has been confirmed. Someone calmly closed their eyes. Dark red compound eyes continue to take in surrounding information despite being closed as the information continues to sort out the information. As if it was thinking about something. They have the qualifications to fight him. That's why he beckons them unto this dark space. Those who have reached this stratum have been fortunate. For the dignity of a person, for the pride of the strong, even if death awaits they must go forth. 8.0. Stratum 80, the room before the dark space. Located ahead at the bottom of the stairs is a dimly lit room. There were various useful daily necessities located within the room as well as several chairs. In front of them is a door. Indescribably thick magic drifted out from behind the shut door. 8.7. Michelle & Co. who descended from the 87th stratum had reached this room. 8.0. 80th stratum, the waiting room before the boss room known as the dark space. Several others have also arrived. They were deep in conversation as they sat on their chairs. They were reporting to each about their situation. When Michelle & Co. arrived, they waved a hand to greet. So what kind of place did you guys came from? From this question, Michel had judged they must have all arrived from different stratums. Apparently, after reporting to each other, they have come to the same conclusion. We came from a place with a ton of demonic beasts. After a desperate struggle with the white ape, we came here after we were troubled about whether to head up or down. I see, we arrived here when we headed up the stairs after defeating the giant golem. As for us, it was the immortal king. It was worthy of the title king of the vicious undead, it was a terrifying demon lord. However, the real threat are the specter knights that guard the king. 3. Apart from the three of us, everyone else on our stratum was slain. The undead dragon, the undead paladin, and then the immortal king. It's a miracle we're even alive. Those guys from the Intelligence Bureau, they've also challenged some strong ones by banding together. They've reported such content to each other. Those who gathered here numbered 7. They were the last surviving forces of the Empire's army in the dungeon, but no one noticed this. They were only vaguely aware. Within the room, there are tea and light snacks meant as food rations, there's also a place to take a nap. And, there are no stairs to head back towards. They also have watches, and they also displayed an identical countdown. 3. Remaining time, 3 hours. It was the last bit of time left for them to prepare. It would seem, if they don't defeat the enemy before them, it would be impossible to leave here alive. However, instead of challenging us one by one, doesn't it seem like it's waiting for more people to gather first? The inflows of questions don't seem to end anytime soon, but they should rid of their fatigue here even if a little. They weren't worried about poison in the food, but no one had reached for the food stock. They each took out their carried rations that may be their last meal, and replenished their energy. For the sake of their survival. All right. I understand the situation. Now then, for the sake of increasing our rate of survival as high as possible, let us discuss without reserve about what to do. 3. Said the man of the trio with the rider-esque looks. There were no objections. This dungeon isn't a place that can be conquered simply by an army. They confirmed this via first-hand experience. If they could return to the surface, they swore never to enter this place again. However, that's impossible. So the only route left is forward. My name, Michel, an otherworlder. My ability is the unique skill fusionist. Thought I take pride in my firepower, it's bad at performing combinations. TN note, is a tricky one, it's a combination of fusion, and person, so, he who fuses. X. I'm Raymond, I'm also an otherworlder. My unique skill is martial artist, I also possess Herculean strength X. Following up after Michel and Co.'s introduction, the others introduced themselves without deceit. The men who defeated the golem was Colonel Kansas and Major General Minute. Colonel Kansas, the hero who commanded the annihilation of the Yuma village. TN note, Yuma / is just basically another way of saying monster in Japanese. And then, Major General Minute, someone who's in the commanding position overseeing the dungeon capturing troops. Those two major figure, why are they here? Due to this, Michel and Raymond changed their attitude. Kansas signaled, don't worry about it, to the two with hand signs. In the Empire, simply being an otherworlder gives them a high position. From the standpoint of military, the pair hold great power. In this current emergency situation, there's no need to sweat the small details. Above all, what they need right now aren't ranks, but strength. 3. Moving on, the last 3 opened their mouths. Those 3 belonged to the guard forces controlled directly by the Emperor. TN note, Rimuru, what happened to picking out the strong ones first? From their words, Michel and Raymond had a surprised look on their faces. Kansas and Minute couldn't hide their surprise either. This is our proof. Unseal. 3. The 3 took out a small pendant, and chanted quietly. 3. Soon, a torrent of light rushed forward, and enveloped the 3. Legendary ranked full-plate mail, they were the highest ranked equipment from eras past that one couldn't normally see, let alone obtain. It shone with the lustrous golden glow of orichalcum. 100. This was equipment permitted to be used only the strongest 100 subordinates of the Emperor. This flowing dignity was proof of their credibility as the genuine article. 3. 3 of the Emperor's royal guards. 3. They were equivalent to the Empire's greatest elite fighting power. And then there's them, Michel and Raymond. Proud of their strength and position at the upper quartile of the Empire's armored remodeled corps. Number 17. Emperor Royal Guard. Number 17 Krishna. Number 35. Emperor Royal Guard. Number 35 Bazin. Number 94. Emperor Royal Guard. Number 94 Rya. Acting with Krisha as the leader, they moved with secret orders from the Emperor. Hope was born in Michel and co., their expressions quickly brightened up. 7 total. Even if they waited longer, reinforcements wouldn't arrive. However, if it's these members. 7. In this dungeon conquering attempt, the top 7 have gathered. The countdown proceeds, the time left, 0. Simultaneously, the door before them opened. They are resolute. They entered the door without hesitation, entering battle betting on their survival. 80. 80th stratum, interior of the dark space. The interior was pitch black without a hint of light, but Rya had illuminated the surroundings with the light magic floor light. What appeared was a breath-halting sight. There was a single floor, and on it were the bodies of the Empire's soldiers towering high above. And on its peak, a single monster. In a Zen meditation position, meditating. Perhaps it was slightly floating, proven from the high level of magic energy being channeled. Michel was convinced. The monster before them, the one who has invited them here, was the demon lord Rimuru. TN note, don't go mixing up our silvered-haired Xiaozhou with some Cayman rider. That's why. Are you, demon lord Rimuru? They couldn't help but ask this. However, that one line had brought down Zijin's imperial wrath upon them. TN note, means touching the reversed scales. In Japanese folklore, the reversed scales are special scales on the underside of a dragon, and touching it is a really bad idea. To mistake one such as I, for the great demon lord Rimuru-sama. You imbeciles who crawl on the ground have only one path of survival. You must defeat Zijin. May your life burn out as you desperately try. And so, the battle, one-sided trampling, begun. Benimaru and I were stunned speechless as we stared at the projectile on the large screen. The projected images showed the earlier situations within the dungeon, and it now shows the silent dungeon, and the presence of Empire Army's soldiers had all vanished. The battle had ended. However, due to the contents we had just witnessed, we were at a loss for words. Isn't that guy even stronger than you? After a brief pause, my honest opinion spilled out of my mouth. Benimaru, who didn't want to admit it, was silent for a while. There's a slight possibility, I don't want to admit this, but... he muttered, feeling vexed. The battle in the dungeon generally advanced as expected. 2. The demon golem was defeated by 2 elite soldiers of the Empire, while Adelman and co. were surprised by their defeat in the hands of the formidable trio clad in orichalcum armor. Apparently, it would seem some strong individuals were in the mix. The knight who won against Alberto in a one-on-one fight, and the female knight who bested Adelman in a magic battle. As expected from the pair of knights who challenged Adelman, but to slay Adelman, who has no weak points thanks to his holy demonic inversion, they were a major threat. When I was worried about whether to show a bit more vigilance, there was no need for that anymore. 2380. The 2 elite soldiers, and the 3 orichalcum-clad knights, they have been simultaneously transferred down to the 80th stratum. 80. The guardian of the 80th stratum, that was Zijin's job. Zijin had forcefully summoned the strong individuals he acknowledged to him via spatial manipulation. The better their lottery luck, the stronger the foes they get. I've heard something about this from Ramiris and heard about the contents of the secret meeting from Beretta afterwards, but nothing happened. Forcefully guiding the strong individuals to himself, he interfered using skills and strength. However, what's terrifying are his senses. Expanding it throughout the dungeon, observing every battle, and picking out only the strong ones. While meditating, he probably managed to grasp each and every one of their movements. What an outrageous thing he did. In addition to the 2 other worlders, the battle began. In a word, overwhelming. The knight who defeated Alberto struck at his maximum speed with his sword. With his left hand, he gently brushed up against the side of the sword, doing so carefully as if to not obstruct the movements of his opponent. At the same time he dived into the bosom of his opponent, he stomped his right foot, and struck the armor of his foe with his right arm. How much force did he put into that fist of his, for with one strike it had shattered the orichalcum armor, and took the life of the knight with a single hit. 3. This all happened within 3 seconds after the fight began. Before they could even perceive their comrade's death, a karate chop was sent towards the female knight. She was lucky. She felt no pain nor fear, for she had died. You. How dare you did that to Rhea? Die, you monster! Dimension cut. The armored knight simultaneously released his anger and his skill. How laughable! Zijin's surroundings distorted, and the attack was blocked. Before the skill demon Lord Rimuru-sama, Raphael, had blessed me with, such attacks are meaningless against me. Wait, that's Covenant King Uriel's manipulated absolute defense spatial distortion field, isn't it? Zijin's spatial manipulation ability, it's beyond the level of a unique skill. This absolute defense was on the same level as Chloe's, who once clashed with Feldera in the past. Thanks to it, she was able to fight on par with Feldera. If that's the case, wouldn't that mean Zijin's strength rivals that of the past hero? What frightening growth! Moreover, that figure looked familiar. Covered in an exoskeleton, a specialized fighter making full use of a monster's ability. Ah, Raphael. That figure. Answer. You may have forgotten, but my master, you had once bestowed him part of your flesh. Due to that, the affected individual, Zijin, had received a full tune-up as a result, and had obtained similar abilities as my master. I remembered. In order to help Zijin, who was on the verge of death, I had covered his words with a part of my flesh. At that time, Zijin was just an insect monster. He had the appearance of a Japanese rhinoceros beetle and a stag beetle. It was a really cool appearance which tickled my fancy. 50 cm. It was an insect-type demonic beast with length of 50 centimeters. Since I heard it was a rare individual, I handed him over to Ramiris. Well, before I sent him to the dungeon, I've also used the demon steel that had adapted to my magic essence in my body, in order to raise his defenses. Indeed, that bee also looked similar. So it's Zijin and Apito. I didn't think this would happen. I've simply gave Apito a demon steel coating and named her. But to think Zijin would actually undergo hyper-evolution. So to speak, by using my ideal combat form, it has evolved into a Majin specialized in combat. Furthermore, Wisdom King Raphael, who was reputed for always going overboard, also remodeled him, and this existence was the result. This Zijin had also underwent intensive training alongside Feldera. There's no way the other party could be his opponent. My expectations were correct. Dimension Ray. Zijin had spread out his 5 fingers, and swung down. Just like that, the dimensions were severed and the space disconnected. The armored knight couldn't resist this, and someone else also got caught up in the collateral. 104. 10 seconds after it began, and 4 are already dead. Oh dear. This one's hopeless. He has already crossed the borders of human limitation. Without a doubt, he's someone who has transcended. 3. According to my calculations, Apito's even stronger than Hinata at her best. Even Apito wouldn't last 3 minutes before Zijin. Then there's when Zijin is actually serious. Why is someone so strong in the dungeon? Isn't that a waste? Or so I think. This guy's a secret weapon now. Let's leave it at that. Or rather, this is a prime example of how badly things can end up when Wisdom King Raphael messes up a task you entrust him. Even thought nothing else was left to him after this. We really need to talk about this afterwards. As for the remaining 3, it's now only a matter of time. A compressed explosion generating hyperheat waves assaulted Zijin, but it doesn't go through its absolute defense. The same goes for that freakish strength. When compared with Zijin's strength, it was crushed. Due to the effects of the modification, the old man, who moved at high speeds to attack, was saw through by Zijin and was stopped. 7. In the end, they hardly lasted a minute before the last of the 7 were defeated. I admit, if I were to fight Zijin in that form, if I can't use my abilities even, I would lose. And due to this thought, the previous question towards Benimaru arose. There are hidden strong individuals in this world, so one should never be careless. And to think one such strong individual was hidden in my territory, this was something outside of my wildest imagination. Truthfully, I'll never truly understand this world. 3-5. And so the battle in the dungeon ended, and I have obtained another 350,000 individuals worth of souls. And above ground, the last battle is about to begin. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 159, The Capital's Defensive Battle. Once again thank you Lion Mask-san for your draft, that and calming the masses. 159. The Capital's Defensive Battle. The Armored Corps Captain Calgurio didn't hide his dissatisfaction over the fact contacts were cut. TN note, the RA for general is, the one used here literally means, Army Corps Captain. The goods and money are also needed, but above all large quantities of high-quality monster cores will likely be needed from here on out. TN note, daily reminder the RA translates to demonic crystals, but yeah it's basically monster cores. We'll change to that if people want that. Otherwise there'll just be a daily note about this. Since it was at a degree where it was never enough, he looked with glee at the sight of them being carried out of the dungeon. 3-5. However, with 350,000 sent in, sending in any more soldiers would fare badly. Even when danger was expected, contact suddenly cut off was unexpected. If threats existed i.e. Feldera was verified, the means for the frontline group to contact all personnel via linked contacting had been prepared. But the results are as shown. The dungeon's entrance is still wide open, yet there were no signs of anyone. What's happening here? Calgurio muttered, but his advisors couldn't answer. Meanwhile, the dungeon is a place to explore. It's not meant to be invaded by an army, don't you think? Said a bewitching beauty to Calgurio. Dressed in the Empire's Armored Corps uniform, one of Cerberus's bosses, Miranda. Having received a secret order from Yuuki, she was to keep tabs on Calgurio's actions while observing the situation of Tempest's invasion. However, her position as the headquarter advisor of the Empire's Armored Corps was the real deal. With befitting abilities, she served as one of Calgurio's advisor. Did the little brat Yuuki say that? Yes. That person said, if you wish to capture the dungeon, you should have sent in only the elites. Ridiculous. I did send in the elites. Calgurio gave an ill-temper answer after hearing her words. 3-5. Correction, prided as the Empire's strongest corps, the armored remodeled corps 350,000 elites had been sent in. Looking for any more than this would simply be overbearing expectations. TN note, formerly known as the Cybernetic Corps. And yet, after taking them all in, the dungeon still stands. Since we couldn't explore the situation inside, sending in reinforcements is a difficult matter. All we can do now, is wait for the survivors to come out, is it? Be at ease. The bracelets with the revival effect have been given to the strong individuals. According to reports, when they die they would revive outside the dungeon no. Since no one has appeared, that means the dungeon conquering has been successful thus far. Except, we aren't entirely certain the bracelet's revival effects actually work though. That person said, since the bracelets were created with a skill, they couldn't be replicated. This silenced Calgurio. A corps captain isn't chosen based on strength alone. Even if you can't become one without strength, if one is incapable of grasping the current situation of things, they are not fit for the role. Miranda's words held truth, the revival effect is an unknown factor. 3-5. But, a structure that can't be taken down even with 350,000 elites is unthinkable. A militant force that could burn several large cities to ashes, they could definitely be called an unreasonable force with confidence. Worst case scenario, they could destroy the dungeon and escape it. 2015. 200,000 troops headed towards the capital of Tempest, and the remaining forces number 150,000. 1515. One could say they still have 150,000 soldiers, yet it should be thought of as having 150,000 soldiers left. Now that things have reached this stage, Calgurio thought perhaps they have underestimated Tempest. Gathering the army's forces, and focusing entirely on taking down the capital of Tempest would be the best course of action. Calgurio was lost and through, then. Leave a few communication squad here, we will reinforce the Tempest capital attacking forces. And then contact the dungeon capturing force, and organize a search team. He didn't have the chance to finish his sentence. The situation had started to show change, as the inflowing whirl had swallowed Calgurio and co. Fighting at multiple fronts shall become their damnation. When the Empire's army had finished charging into the dungeon, their capital warfront on the other hand had not progressed at all. Only a few kilometers away from their current point, it was but a stone's throw away. They've spent a day to set up base, and send only the reconnaissance team to scout out the capital's surroundings. Towards the Empire's army, Gerudo laughed scornfully. No matter how much they scouted, it was meaningless, for no ambushes were stationed. Since they were too close to the capital to deploy traps, this time it will become a straight-up head-on collision. They were overwhelmingly disadvantaged in terms of numbers. However, Gerudo's role is to stall, to maintain the front-line defenses of the capital. A battle tactic that the Dwarven King is most skilled at, to launch powerful magic behind protective troops forming a wall. TN note, that's kinda standard. To Gerudo, this was a clean and simple strategy. And the ones launching the powerful magic spells, are the Kurane. 5000. They, who are Benimaru's personal guards, will become the cornerstones of this battle. In addition, there's the enforcement from the Great Jura Forest's high-ranked existences, the Yujitsu squad of 5,000. They could have gathered more, but this time there is a focus on those with high attack power. The rest would be prepared for in case when Gerudo falls, for the final clash. At the moment, they were formed by the human volunteer squad, and should currently be assigned into groups. 5000. The squadron of 5,000 Yujitsu users is led by Benimaru's self-proclaimed spouse, Momiji the Tengu. For my husband Sama, victory. TN note, * now loading. And so she invigorated the masses heartwarmingly. It looks like the hurdles had already been cleared, and by now it's already an established fact. TN note, while literally means the surrounding moat has been filled, derived from the saying /to fill the outer moat. Deriving from Sengoku era, in a nutshell it means to reach the objective you must first clear the obstacle. Given the context, the authors most likely implying that Momiji had cleared the hurdles of romance, I think. God knows when, don't ask me. At the strategizing stage it would seem Momiji is above Benimaru, thought Gerudo, though the person in question might unexpectedly not dislike this. TN note, I guess it's true when they say love is a battlefield. If he really disliked it, he would have dealt with it long ago. If that ain't it, the title, Supreme Commander, would weep. The backline support are perfect, our means of attack are ready. Afterwards, the Empire's army and our own army, whether their barriers are stronger and how to defend against their magic attacks, these will be the deciding factors of this battle. That would be the case, under normal circumstances. In this battle, there's Shin under Gerudo's supervision, and she declared that she would take independent action. Doing as she pleases, this would usually be considered an outrageous act. But, if they want to offset the current overwhelmingly disadvantageous status quo of fewer numbers, a wild card like Shin just might work. And Benimaru ordered. Just leave her be, she's probably got something in mind. At that moment, when the enemy is thrown into chaos, aim and strike. He said. Gerudo's job now, is to become an absolute wall that the enemy army shall not pass. They'll put all their heart into defending, and soon Shin will cause chaos in the midst of the enemy army. When the chance arises, their focus completely on full-on firepower. Simple and straight. Since Gerudo believed in Benimaru, he'll fulfill his duty without doubt. And so, after the 24-hour standoff, the battle began. Gerudo's defenses was impregnable. 17000. The Empire's forces were unable to destroy the combined might of 17,000 high orcs from the yellow core, yellow number, and the orange core, orange numbers. The portable sorcery cannons were nullified by Gerudo's unique skill Guardian, as it grants his entire army with an ironclad defense. In addition, with his unique skill Gormant allowed for goods in his stomach to be shared amongst everyone in the core. The various injuries sustained would be healed with magic by the backline support team, and major ones would be healed using recovery potions. Rather than simply for this war, a large amount of recovery potions would always be stored within his stomach in case of emergency situations. Deterioration never happens, so through the effects of stomach Gerudo's subordinates could take out potions at any time. Considering this from the military logistics point of view, a troop that could heal the injured on the spot without moving away have become a second trustworthy defensive wall after the impregnable wall. TN note, sounds confusing I know, but that's what it says. Above the second corps led by Gerudo, someone was floating in the skies overlooking them below. It was Carrera. This demon lord, alongside 2 attendants were assigned to the second corps as the military intelligence officer. TN note, the kanji was, but the katakana was. Maybe the author made a mistake? She was supposed to be a demon duke. As a soldier Gerudo gladly accepted the girls, and told them to act as they see fit. In reality, with Gerudo completely focused on the role of a wall, there was nothing for Carrera to do. Carrera had received secret orders from Rimuru, to protect Gerudo. It's most likely, Testarossa and Ultima had too received similar orders, for amongst the Empire's army are some so strong that not even the executives could handle them, and to stall for time by being their foe is their role. TN note, funny, pretty sure those 2 were under house arrest at the dungeon's lowest floor. But things are different now. The reason, go all out. This was the heaven-sent order from their most beloved master Rimuru. However, they also understood if they went overboard he would be displeased, as seen from Ul and Testa. Not to overdo it, but go all out. In conclusion, Carrera decided to release nuclear strike magic from the skies. Wait a moment please. Carrera-sama, what are you planning to do now? Her Archdemon Vice Officer Ajira frantically stopped her. Her sensitivity to signs allowed her to read Carrera's actions, a skill honed over a long span of time, a genius that has experienced much of life. TN note, Ajira's gender wasn't specified as a female. It just sounds feminine. Oya? Ajira, is something wrong? I was just thinking of initiating a mid-air nuclear explosion, and roasting the ground with the excess heat. How's that? I've contemplated about this you know. I don't strike them directly, and would perfectly held back. Splendid, it's perfect. As expected of Carrera-sama. Splendid was it. Shut up you. Are you certain Carrera-sama? I do not believe this is truly holding back. What did you say? The one who has ample life experience Ajira, after silencing her irresponsible esprit's flattery, had politely explained as if to a child. Her superior Carrera, had a personality like a runaway car with no brakes. It's going to be very hard work calming her. Her strength was immense, and equally difficult to manage. Her colleague Esprit who should be carrying the load with her was only a useless bum who'd just follow Carrera around. The result, she was made to carry all the weight, making this a less than desirable working environment. She could probably barely manage Testarossa who was malevolent but had reason and Ultima who had restraint but simply overdid it. However, Carrera who always went all out was no good. Ajira didn't have the mentality to watch her go all out, and laugh it off alongside her. No, so far it would have been fine. Even amongst the strongest demons, they were elites. Someone who could order them around didn't existed. However, in this era, if they want to gain the attention of Demon Lord Rimuru, it's essential that they must start to remember using their brains. She has already started doing so. Even so, to get her superior Carrera to also have the ability to start thinking a little was her sincere wish. And so the worldly wise Ajira politely explained to Carrera was someone who'd get bored easily with long explanations, so the explanation was kept simple concise. It was a difficult task but when it was done. Suddenly, abnormal changes were happening at the enemy front lines. Leading the Yamigiri, Shin, and her personal subordinates had begun to move. 1. Their number 10,000. Personally trained by Shin herself, putting it in a nutshell the Yamigiri was a troop composing of her fans. TN note, the Shin fan club. Any new recruits? Their numbers weren't high, but from what Carrera observed from the skies they possessed a remarkably high combat prowess. Due to Shin's unique skill, All members of Yamigiri were clad in a terror haki. 10,000 soldiers transformed into terror knights as they pummeled the Empire's armies, instigating fear into the hearts of enemies, breaking their battle spirits, sealing off the enemy's own abilities while one-sidedly unleashed unrestrained violence onto them. The effects were tremendous. Donning bluish-purple armor crafted by the elder brother of the three dwarves Garm himself, Shin's personal forces dominated the battlefield. 3. There are three giants emitting a ridiculous amount of demonic aura as they rampaged about. They are the three sons of the demon lord Dagruel. 3. The three, also clad in terror haki, had became the literal incarnation of violence as they went berserk. They were like three vortexes in the middle of the battlefield, mowing down the Empire's soldiers like weeds. Excluding the three giants, each individual of Shin's personal forces displayed overwhelming level of strength and magic essence. She didn't know what kind of training did they undergo, but even from a demon's point of view Ajira still felt a threatening feeling. Hey, Ajira. While we were here listening to your boring story, it looks like Shin had stolen a march on us, huh? Ajira felt anxiety. Considering Carrera's lack of restraint to begin with, would get even more explosive when she's angry. Furthermore, if the target of Carrera's anger is her, she could give up on the notion of staying alive. Carrera-sama. There are some standby troops intact at the back line. Wouldn't that suffice? Spirit was like, be thankful, you idiot. His gaze seemed to be conveying this message while his finger pointed elsewhere. 20. And over there, was an army of 200,000 soldiers facing the capital, on standby in their camp. Carrera nodded and smiled. Oh, there are indeed. Ain't that neat, let's dig in. TN note, not dig in as in eating, but in this context it's more like having a go at them. She nodded with a satisfied look. Ajira didn't try to stop her anymore. If her superior ran amok and got reprimand, she'll come up with something then. Because right now what's most important is to make sure she's not pissed at her. The hardships of the world-wise Ajira had just begun. And so, the second forces camped at the camp prepared to attack the capital was destroyed by an attack from above. Their permanent barrier was nullified by their own creation, the magic canceller, and was struck by the bombardment of a large-scale annihilation magic. Ajira and Esprit each worked to disable various kinds of barriers. Immediately afterwards, Carrera aimed for the right timing and invoked her magic. A type of nuclear strike magic, gravity collapse. Suddenly, gravitational strength spiked drastically, the soldiers couldn't withstand their own weight and was crushed by it. Setting up camp at a wide open space, was the exact reason why they couldn't escape the demon's eyes. If the gravitational strength was too powerful, the super-dense gravity would have imploded and caused a huge explosion, but this time Carrera slightly held back. She had tentatively took in Ajira's advice and pulled her punches. And so an explosion didn't occur, the majority of those who couldn't resist it died, and the magic dissipated. Even so, to the army this was no light loss. Carrera was satisfied with this one strike, and ordered a retreat. She returned to support Gerudo. And now all that's left is for the Empire's army to take a devastating blow. However, for them this was fortunate, for it had happened so quickly they were spared no time to feel terror or regret as they left for the afterlife. Conversely, those who lived, buried under a mountain of bodies, had fear encroach their very souls, created a distrust towards the Empire, and amidst all this could only lament about their own stupidity. And so, this battle near the capital's vicinity had developed into a one-sided trampling by Shin, while their reinforcements were crushed by Carrera. And, Gerudo's wall had hardly fallen at all, as they pushed back the Empire's army without losing any ground. The Tempest Capital defensive battle was a complete victory. With the capital defensive battle over, the war situation had shifted to cleaning up the last of the Empire's forces. Minor note to Lion-san. Improvements could be made, but once again nice work. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 160, The Cleanup Annihilation War. Special thank to Lion-san and Co once again, and the editor credits goes to those who are gonna point out the various stupid mistakes I've made. 160. The Cleanup Annihilation War. From his subordinates, Calgurio had received many despairing reports. The situation was very grim. It's evident that this war was a failure. No, that's not all. It had already reached the point where the odds of retreating out of the forest alive were questionable. How did this happen? No, to begin with, when did? With his thoughts locked in a desperate loop and failing to break out of it, Calgurio once again evaluates the hopeless situation whilst determining their possible courses of action. Even though he couldn't do anything to turn this worst-case scenario around, as the corps captain he is still responsible for the lives of his officers and soldiers. That was the one thing he would never turn his back away from. The first report had initially intended to convey that the capital offense troops have engaged with the enemy forces. The heated battle is on the verge of reaching a deadlock. Despite their overwhelming advantage in numbers, they couldn't push through the enemy's impregnable defensive formation. The enemy was fighting with fervor. The sorcery cannon and magician's wide-scale magic were all completely tanked by the enemy's defensive barrier, unable to exert their effects. Despite being the enemy, it was a praiseworthy defensive formation. Since they have lost contact with the dungeon capturing squad, they could only head towards the capital. This isn't the time to praise the enemy's defenses. By the time Calgurio had linked the dots, he had already realized that he was backed against a wall. But, it was already too late. The situation had escalated swiftly. A new enemy had emerged. That troop was the living embodiment of terror. With an oppressive force, they had begun tramping all over them. Their numbers hardly reach 1/10 of their own, yet they could do nothing against it. According to the reports of the energy measurement team, there were several individuals with a vast quantity of magical essence within them. TN note, it's over 9,000. This never gets old? However, the majority of enemy troops, their energy values were comparable to that of their own forces. The number of rank monsters isn't a lot. Yet, the results had unfurled before him, and their own forces were cornered into a corner. There were even further developments. From within the enemy's impregnable formation, unparalleled wide-scale magic was unleashed. Due to the strikes from the enemy magic and Yujitsu, there were a great number of causalities in the Empire's forces. The objective of the purple armored troops was to spread unified fear, causing the Empire's armies to fall into confusion, eventually noticing the barrier weakening. It was a display of brilliant cooperation. However, if it was only to this extent, they could still regroup. 1-0. The capital offensive troops vanguard and rearguard have 100,000 soldiers each. When the vanguards begin to collapse, the rearguards could provide support, change positions with the vanguards and regroup. This was possible precisely because of their overwhelming advantage in numbers, a sure win strategy. Even if it's only a temporary upper hand, we've preserved the dignity of the Demon Lord. TN note, like how Germany let Brazil score a goal in FIFA semi-finals so they didn't suffer a complete defeat, except in this case we all know what happens next. Once he was aware he was backed into a corner, he had just gained a bit of coverage. Except said coverage had vanished into thin air immediately right after. Through the use of telescopic magic, the Empire Army's advisors including Calgurio were observing the battlefield a few kilometers away. Everyone was at a loss for words in an instant. Any remaining feeling of coverage had immediately dispersed. The energy measurement team screamed like a madman and cried out in fear. "Oh, order a retreat immediately," they said. Except everything was too late. Rather than trying to comprehend the meaning of his words, it was much quicker observing the situation before him. The rearguard troops who wanted to support the vanguards had all been struck by tragedy. A type of nuclear strike magic, gravity collapse. Releasing an absolute energy, a brutal magic that spreads tyrannical violence. Causing gravitational magnetic fields to run rampart like that of a star, it creates a localized high-intensity gravity field. Everything in the affected region would feel its effects and be crushed. If everything keeps on being compressed, all the energy would be pressed into a single point, causing a mini supernova on the ground. This time, it seems this wasn't the objective of the enemy. When the majority of the soldiers were crushed to death, the effects of the magic disappeared. Even so, amongst the 100,000 soldiers, the ones still alive number 2. AMO, monster. There was just one of the, yet that galactic magic. A magic that only exists in theory. It's impossible to use it here, the energy consumption required is astronomical. Indeed, Calgurio has knowledge about it. Theoretically, it was possible, however it's still in research stage. It wasn't a magic confirmed in the past, but rather the amalgamation of the Empire's technology, the knowledge from another world, and a compilation of theories creating a new type of wide-scale magic being researched upon. TN note, clearly it isn't. Yet, it was perfectly activated. And it merely took a single monster. Demon Lord. Those words, alongside a realistic sense of fear, had reached the brain of Calgurio. We have lifted our hands against someone we should have never laid our hands on, didn't we? TN note, you think so? 10. In the first place, to activate a magic of that magnitude, even with 10 magicians it might not succeed. Its energy consumption couldn't be compared with that of an average nuclear strike magic, and without perfect concentration would only result in accidental discharges of energy. Even so, to have the ability to stop it completely midway through, it could only be thought of as the ability of an inhuman monster. However, we still have the scientific weapon, the magic canceller. No, we should immediately retreat, Calgurio-sama. The man who suddenly barged into the tent, said this to Calgurio. When thinking about what the heck were the guards doing, he saw the man. Hey, aren't you Krishna Dano? In the Empire's battle for positions, this man would often rank in a high position. He too had participated in these battles often himself, he was a swordsman you couldn't be careless around. This man, with a haggard appearance, donned the Empire's strongest legendary ranked equipment, and there was a gaping hole at his chest plate. There were still signs of a death struggle on it. Look, Bazin and Reha are already dead. Colonel Kansas and Major General Minutes too. In addition, 2 other worlders. There are monsters in there that can't be taken down even with that kind of power. We've detected a grand magic just now, but we're afraid that's not the Demon Lord. Several Archdemon class monsters had already been identified within the dungeon. Furthermore, there are even Demon Lord classes. That magic we've detected, it's most likely used by one such individual. Retreat now. There's no shame in this, decide quickly. TN note, I think the author mixed up Demon Lord and Demon Duke, but the Ross say Demon Lord, I might change it to Demon Duke at my own discretion in the future. Not the Demon Lord? And, there's several more of those monsters. Demon Lords. So it was something on this level. And above this, the wicked dragon Feldera still hasn't made his appearance. And the Demon Lord Rimuru hasn't moved yet. Gather the soldiers, we're retreating at once. Out of the 3 revival bracelets confiscated from Shinji and Co., Calgurio had taken one and hid it for himself. 2 were given to the technology department for analysis, and one of them was given to Krishna. Since the Emperor's orders were absolute, the technology department could only hand it over without complaint. One had been completely taken apart, thus this was the only one that could be used, and thanks to said bracelet Krishna was able to revive. And thus, while the revival effects of the bracelets were confirmed, the replicas having no effect was also confirmed. The soldiers in the dungeon, in the truest sense of the words, were wiped out. 350,000 soldiers, all wiped out. Calgurio's complexion paled, but now's not the time for that. Rather than the dead, those who are still alive are more important. 400. There are the tank corps and 400 airships, they should first regroup with them, get a grasp of the situation, and then reorganize the army. At worst they would retreat back to the Empire, but it was much better than complete annihilation. Calgurio had decided, and was about to give out the orders. However, it was too late. TN note, you guys would make bad office workers, always a bit too late. Kyufu. Now that would be troubling. Why don't you be my opponent for a bit? The demon had crept in, never allowing their pitiful prey to escape. Tension was in the air of the headquarters. Only a single monster had intruded. However, the aura emitting from it was more overwhelming than any monster they've met so far. A monster with a similar stature to theirs, yet emitting magical essence more concentrated than a gigantic dragon. Furthermore, it had intruded without anyone noticing. Even with that kind of aura, he still managed to intrude without anyone sensing. The guards pointed their swords at the intruder. However, Calgurio's body felt heavy, he couldn't raise his sword as he willed. Kyu-fu-fu-fu. You inferior trash wish to battle me as equals. The red-haired monster, Diablo laughed. Calgurio looked at Krishna, but Krishna had already kneeled. Krishna had probably perceived the overwhelming difference in ability, and was despairing. Calgurio held onto a small silver of hope, and tried to negotiate with Diablo. Pardon my rudeness, my name is Calgurio. I am the leader of this corps, and the highest authority bearer in this operation. May I please ask for thine name? TN note, apparently is a slightly rude way of saying I, according to the dictionary. Overall his tone was really polite though. Oya? You're a polite one. My name is Diablo, a loyal servant of Demon Lord Rimuru. TN note, he also used on top of, so he's actually calling himself the loyal lowly servant of Rimuru. As Calgurio had guessed, this was a named monster. Or rather, it would be strange if something of this caliber didn't have a name. Confirming that the other part had reason and intellect, Calgurio had hopes with the negotiation. Diablo Dono, we wish to offer our surrender. If this battle continues we would have more dead soldiers, your side would also sustain more damages, no? What do you say? Of course, we would pay compensation, and promise to refrain from all acts of invasion in the future. No, we could even have an alliance between Tempest and our empire. We wouldn't forget this kindness. How about it? Could you please pass this on to Demon Lord Rimuru-sama? 3-5. Considering the current situation, all 350,000 of the dungeon capturing team are dead. As for the capital offense team, over half were either dead or could no longer continue to fight. 1520. Unable to contact any other troops, the current fighting forces on hand are 150,000 members including survivors totaling to a little less than 200,000. There will be a number of causalities should they act violently, so if they want a complete victory this is a considerable proposal. Calgurio had made a split-second decision. Rather than fleeing, he tried to negotiate with Demon Lord Rimuru via an intermediary. This military operation was a complete washout. They had completely underestimated the enemy forces. 3. It was a prided battle force that could have went up against 3 old demon lords simultaneously and still triumph. Even if they combined all the battle strength of the West, they still wouldn't be able to compare to 1/3 of the Empire's forces. They were convinced of absolute victory, yet this was the result. Demon Lord class, and several more Demon Lord class individuals, all under the banner of the Demon Lord Rimuru. TN note, yeah, I think should have been Demon Duke. They should pay compensation here and retreat, then rebuild their forces henceforth. 50. There are already almost 500,000 deaths, and Calgurio will no doubt be done for, but any more than this then the Empire's backbone would collapse. Calgurio was greedy, but not incompetent. That's why, he had offered this proposal. If the enemy demanded for the lives of the generals, then he must be prepared to sacrifice himself. But, it's all too late. TN note, at this point they're just cursed. Kamiju, is that you? Kyu-fu-fu-fu. This proposal came a little too late. At this point, you're the only ones alive. Calgurio couldn't understand what he was told. The advisors too, were befuddled by his words. However, Diablo generated a gust of wind with his mind. Pichin. And snapped his fingers. In moments, the tent was blown off, and the outside scenery had entered Calgurio's sights. And there was a mountain of corpses. The soldiers in the middle of their work, laid dead as if they were asleep. It was almost as if their soul was pulled out of them. No, their soul was probably actually pulled out, the soldiers were unable to resist and had their souls ripped out by the red-haired demon Diablo. Diablo had no reason to put in time and effort to want the enemy soldiers flee to begin with. And killing them all would also be troublesome. And so, as he descended he had also simultaneously activated End of World, reaping the souls of every enemy soldiers. In actuality, he could have killed them with madness via Demon Lord's Haki, but that would have caused too great of a commotion. Diablo didn't plan to allow even a single enemy alive. Precisely because of that, he quickly annihilated the enemy, without a shred of hesitation. To begin with, he always preferred being a lone wolf. That is also why he doesn't have his own subordinates. They are but useless tools that aren't even worth using. Currently there's been a small fry called Venom who's been selfishly following him around, but if he proves useful then he'll be used. For Diablo, a tool's worth is in its utility. That's why useless subordinates are und. He himself too, must prove himself to be a useful tool, lowly servant, to his master Rimuru. You oh. Calgurio screamed, glaring at Diablo as if he was vomiting blood. TN note, means, cry of despair, word for word. The rage from having his comrades slain had overlaid his fears in an instant. At that instant, an awe-inspiring radiant armor had wrapped around Calgurio, and his mind calmed down. The strongest armor from the era of gods. Borrowed from the Emperor, a god-class equipment. 4. Permitted to be worn only by the 4 core captains, it was a testimony to the Empire's greatest fighting power. Unforgivable, demon. I'm going to murder you. Fu. That's more like it. Now this is getting interesting. They had a standoff, and the final battle began. However, it couldn't be called a fight. That's because, to Diablo Calgurio was nothing more than a lesser life form, even god-class equipment is nothing before mighty strength. Tools only have meaning should you know how to use it. It's not but a pitiful tale if an owner couldn't bring out the full potential of his tool. Calgurio didn't even manage to get Diablo to get serious, it was nothing but the simple reaping of a single soul. 1-5. There were 150,000 soldiers of the Empire's army encamped outside in the vicinity of dungeon. Apart from the few of the higher-ups, none of them realized what caused them to be annihilated. In this fashion, the entirety of the Empire's forces that came to invade Tempest, was completely annihilated without leaving behind any major achievements. And so the crisis has passed for now. In actuality, whether this could actually be called a crisis or not is left to the people to determine. And so the Empire's invasion of Tempest has ended in failure. Note to Lion-san. You know Lion-san, after reading your TN notes, I think you're forgetting you're supposed to be carrion under a mask, not an actual lion. Oh well. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.